Welcome back to another episode of the MycoGeeky Podcast. Today we have a truly exciting conversation lined up with two pioneers in the world of foraging and mushroom education, Ryan and Emily Bouchard from the Mushroom Hunting Foundation. Ryan and Emily have turned their passion for foraging wild mushrooms and edible plants into a mission-driven journey, founding a nonprofit dedicated to educating the public and shifting the way society views and connects with mushrooms. We'll be diving into their experiences, how they've built a community around foraging, and why they believe it's time for a cultural shift in how we relate to the fungal world. So grab your baskets and field guides, and let's jump into this fascinating discussion on how two passionate foragers are changing the way we hunt for and think about mushrooms. Yo, welcome to the MycoGeeky Podcast, where we explore the fascinating world of mushrooms and the people who love them. From expert cultivators to passionate foragers, we bring you deep conversations, cutting-edge insights, and everything mycology. Whether you're a seasoned mycophile or just curious, we invite you to geek out with us on the wonders of fungi and join the mushroom movement. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the MycoGeeky Podcast, the podcast that goes deep so you can level up your at-home mushroom cultivation game. I'm your host, MycoGeeky, and we got a great show for you tonight. We're going to sit down with Ryan and Emily Bouchard of the Mushroom Hunting Foundation, get to know them, get to know what they're all about, what they're doing up there in New England, maybe inspire some people to get out in the woods. That's definitely one of the things we're enjoying over here at the MycoGeeky Podcast. Just feels good to get out in the woods, and it really feels good to learn about mushrooms, connect with nature. Um, you can do that with a macro journey. You can do that any day of the week. Just get out in the woods, connect with nature. So we're gonna get to know them a little bit. I had a lot of fun sitting down with them, and definitely made me want to get up to New England. Sitting there talking to them about how dry it was down here, and they're like, we got mushrooms for days up here. I'm like, man, I got to get up there. Anyway, before we get into that, got to shout out Stealthy Spores. My buddy Stealthy and I were we're trying to figure out how we can get together and maybe record some like how-to videos on how to play this game. There's a little bit to it. It's a little complicated. I didn't quite figure it out till he sat me down and walked me through it. And a lot of people at the Ohio Mushroom Festival had a blast playing, to the point where they're like, "Oh, I guess I got to get me some decks." So we want to teach you guys how to play the game. I believe he's still got a promo right now going on for the summer deck. Go to stealthyspores.com, check it out. All sorts of cool cards. It's a really good time, right? You're documenting all the great people in the mushroom community right now who are making it what it is, shaping new genetics. Just being a part, contributing to the community, and that deck kind of immortalizes that. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, and then of course, promo code Geeky gets you 10% off. All the proceeds go to the Mycelium Revolution, hosted by the Michael Mamas. I'm gonna get to hang out with the Michael Mamas at the NAMA foray coming up here end of October. Looking forward to that. That's gonna be a lot of fun. And then that's gonna be it. That's the traveling season is over for me. I've gone to quite a few things, had a lot of fun. I will be ready for a little break during the winter. We'll get back to growing a lot more mushrooms. We'll get back to doing some couple of research projects I got going on. Hopefully, we can also get some cool content out to you guys. Should be a good time. Shout out to my Patreon supporters. You guys are literally paying the bills. I know I say this, but I gotta say this again. I was talking to one of my Patreon supporters, and it just kind of dawned on me. Like, so people, the guy said something like, man, you got like I don't know how you don't have more support on here. You got 11,000 subscribers. Hundreds of people watch every Monday, and yet you got X number of people supporting you on Patreon. And I'm like, it's okay, it's okay. But look, guys, I mean, really, seriously, if you can support the podcast, I would really appreciate it. It keeps it going. It makes this possible. It makes traveling. It makes growing the content possible. So really consider supporting when you can, if you can, however much you can. I would appreciate it. We're also going to do a little revamping of the Patreon to help incentivize and make it kind of a cooler place to be. So look, I'm only one guy. I'm doing the best I can, but hopefully we can get some help here pretty soon and start evolving that content on Patreon. Anyway, what else we got going on? Oh, for the first time in like literally 2 years, I'm completely caught up on my sterilizer production. Got all my sterilizers out, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is great. Please, nobody order a sterilizer right now. I just want like, give me a week or two, guys. Just give me a week or two. I really appreciate it. Um, what else we got going on? Oh yeah, we'll be announcing pretty soon Myco Treks. We got the new trip coming up next July. It's going to be 13th through the 20th. We're going to be doing some updates on the website and get all that information out to everybody, and hopefully come up with a payment plan, a way for people put some money down and lock in your spot, but not have to pay the full bill right away. And we're going to book that thing full, and we're going to go have a blast in Mexico again, find a bunch of cool mushrooms. It's going to be a good time. All right, so let's get back into it. Emily and Ryan Bouchard of the Mushroom Hunting Foundation, we sat down with them. Man, I'm going to tell you right now, some people that I have on the show, I can just tell they care about what they do so much. Um, they want to get pictures together. They want to go over what we're going to talk about. It's just so abundantly clear how passionate and how serious and how focused they are on mushroom education. And it was a real treat to sit down with them. So let's get into it. All right, welcome to the show, Ryan and Emily Bouchard. What's up, guys?
Hey.
Good morning.
How you doing? Yeah, it is. Yeah, still technically morning here, huh? Had all sorts of fun stuff going on this morning on both sides. We worked through getting some PowerPoints together. I can tell you right now, the audience loves seeing pictures. So thank you guys for taking the time to do that. That is always appreciated. Audience definitely loves seeing pictures of mushrooms. So
You want
cannot wait
pictures
to
of
get into that.
mushrooms? We got about 300,000
Yeah,
last we checked on our hard drives.
compiling our mushroom pictures and backing them up has been a bit of a conundrum. I mean, yeah, she's correct. It's something like 350,000
Wow.
pictures and videos of mushrooms and plants, largely mushrooms though, and other stuff like the occasional snake or
Yeah.
cool thunderstorm. But it's just all mushroom. It's just mushrooms.
Nice. Well, then you're in the right spot for that. That's definitely what people watching the show are all about. All right, so let's do this. So for people who don't know who you are, just kind of give me an overview. I had seen you guys, in and out of different ID groups and mushroom groups on Facebook, and I can't remember exactly how it happened, but anyway, Emily reached out one day and started talking to me about some stuff, and we were like, God, we should probably do an episode. So for everybody who doesn't know who you guys are and where you're from and what you're all about, just kind of give us a little overview of who you guys are.
All right.
We founded the nonprofit called the Mushroom Hunting Foundation. We've been foraging together for about 15 years, but we've been doing it full time for almost 10 years professionally, teaching people how to enjoy the fruits of the forest, whether it be edible wild plants or mushrooms. Specializing in mushrooms first, I really started getting into edible wild plants too. We include that on our guided walks and things. But our nonprofit is essentially driven to help people change the view of how we see wild mushrooms in American society. Most people are afraid of wild mushrooms or biased about wild mushrooms. If you're looking for wild mushrooms, it's either drugs or you're crazy, right? We're just trying to change that stigma essentially, and that include wild mushrooms are a part of our culture and families and activities and eating them, of course, enjoying wild mushrooms as part of your diet and edible wild plants to a degree. So
It's funny that she mentioned drugs because, every once in a while we do find magic mushrooms in the wild. So I definitely want to, I know a lot of your viewership is interested in that topic. So I definitely want to, before the end, I don't want to forget to turn to that topic.
Oh
Um,
yes.
I mentioned to Mr. MycoGeeky before we started this, through the years, people say to us, repeatedly, you guys should supplement what you're doing by growing mushrooms and grow some oyster mushrooms and sell them at your talks and stuff. And over time, our answer to that has developed into, that's a whole other profession. That's a whole other world of knowledge and experience that is not ours. We specialize in wild mushrooms. And when it comes to psychedelic mushrooms, I could get really in depth on like what's a really good version of Dark Star, or you know, something along those lines. But at the same time, as far as growing them, we know next to nothing. We've done some grow kits for fun, like we grew some lion's mane a couple times, and but yeah, we really specialize in the wild mushrooms, teaching people how to identify them safely. A good part of what we do is wrapped around which mushrooms we consider to actually be safe for beginners to identify and identify correctly. And before I forget to say it, it worries me with online chat rooms and stuff, how people can sort of someone can put a picture up there and someone can throw a Latin name at it, and wow, that guy even knows a Latin name. That must mean they know what they're talking about, and that is probably getting people sent to the hospital.
And the
And
popularity of mushroom apps to ID mushrooms
Yeah.
now is extremely dangerous and foolhardy. I'm always telling people, don't let the robots win, right? It's taking the thought out of the equation. And why would you want to do that? How would you trust your life to a computer?
and another thing is, some people sort of come into mushroom hunting just wanting to know, can I eat this or not? Can I
Right.
eat this one? And we get that because we're also obsessed with eating wild mushrooms.
We've also met a mycologist who says that's the least interesting aspect of a fungus. If you can learn to appreciate them in their ecology and what they're doing in the habitat, and then learn to, if we can eat them. Of course, the first hand that shoots up is always, can I eat that one? Yeah, we want to know that too. But the real first question should be like, what is that species? And like, what is this? Can I enjoy it for the table?
So let me ask you guys this. So this is, I think you guys are the first. Well, no, I've had one other nonprofit organization person on here before, but she was coming at it from a completely different angle. It was more about taking care of vets using psychedelics. So you guys are the first, what is it, 501c3 who's focused on mushroom foraging. Talk to me about like what is the aim of the foundation in more depth. I know you sort of lightly touched on it, but like what is your real vision for the nonprofit?
All right. Well, maybe as a little bit of a background, they say that the United States is one of the countries that has a very reluctant or even fearful view of wild mushrooms, right? Now, now we don't, before I get into this stuff, I just want to say we're not looking down on anybody because this was us. 15 years ago, we decided to deliberately start learning about wild mushrooms. But before that, I think we probably didn't know what a mycelium was. We didn't know what gills were. I mean, it's funny because if you look at trees, everybody knows a tree has a trunk and branches and leaves or needles and roots and bark and shit. It's like
Yep.
it's basic vocabulary in English. But if people who know about fungi, it's all these strange words that nobody else seems to know, and it's a little sad actually. Now, obviously, there's a level of in-depth um, knowledge that comes with some of this territory with either growing mushrooms or identifying wild mushrooms. There's stuff that will never be part of the general vocabulary, but still, we think it's kind of funny that people don't know what the gills are on a mushroom, or don't know what the veil is, or the stipe, or what a mycelium is, and those are just some of the most basic things. We try to get people to say things like polypores. Emily will always say, when I say, okay, yeah, that's the black staining polypore, and Emily will go, you know what, everybody repeat after me, polypores, and
Mhm.
everybody's like polypores, and we're like, that's right, because polypores are one of the main categories of mushrooms. So the polypores are one of the most important families or categories of mushroom species, and it includes things like the black staining polypore, the beefsteak polypore, the pheasant polypore, the hen of the woods or maitake is a polypore, and the chicken of the woods is another kind of polypore. So it's a family of mushrooms that has a bunch of very important edible species in it, and yet people don't. It's not a word you hear in ordinary conversation, like you would hear someone talking about the leaves of a tree, or maple trees, or whatever. It's just mushrooms remain very esoteric to most people, and some of these species we deal with are very obscure, but there's some that should just be in everyone's awareness, just like broccoli and stuff. In fact, the mycologist David Aurora from California, kind of jokes around about our sort of being behind the times in America when it comes to mushrooms. We tend to say that all mushrooms taste like mushrooms. And he says, when we all talk about mushrooms, we all mean that one species from the store. And we talk about that let's have mushrooms. Everybody knows they mean that one certain kind of flavor because that's all you really offered in the supermarket. And it really blew my mind to understand this, but the jars of little small marinated mushrooms in the supermarket, the little tiny ones, and the button mushrooms in the supermarket, the white button mushrooms and the brown button mushrooms, the cremini. And then there's those medium-sized baby bellas, and then there's the portobellos. There's the big brown portobellos, and sometimes there's white ones of those too. Well, everything I just mentioned is all the same species of mushroom.
Agaric spice boris, which is a great mushroom. It's versatile mushroom, but there's so many other flavors out there. There's so many colors, textures, sizes, shapes. Like
Yep.
the diversity of the king of fungi is astounding, and the flavors, especially, can be so astonishing.
Totally. And to go back to David Aurora, he says, what if we talked about plants like that? Like, we're going to have some steak tonight. How about as a side, we'll have some plants? Oh, yeah, we'll have steamed plants. I love
Right.
plants. It's going to be awesome.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
It's like, what if we were that vague when we talked about mushrooms? But we are
Yeah.
in general, So that's
100%. Like, yes, because we come from a society where if it doesn't come in a can or in that little bin at the grocery store, don't eat it, don't touch it, it's poison, it'll kill you, don't even look at it or think about it, it's bad, like, yeah, the stigma's insane, it's really crazy.
it's that's absolutely true, and it's we've found it to be true from talking to people. There was, I mean, it seems mushroom hunting and wild mushrooms and mushrooms in general are becoming more and more trendy, and a big part of that is how they are wild foods, natural foods, native foods, all these different things that are really great about them. And it's also really fun to find them. And they're also gourmet ingredients. Some of these things are fantastically delicious. And what happened, especially in the past century, is that you'd have parents or grandparents maybe wanting to pass down the knowledge that they brought from maybe from Europe or Asia, about different kinds of edible mushrooms. But for one thing, maybe they didn't know the names for the science, the subtle parts of mushrooms or how to actually describe it in English. And so maybe
Yeah.
instead of teaching a lousy half-assed lesson, they decided, I'll pick the mushrooms. I'm not going to teach the kids how to do it.
Right.
And because one of the main causes of mushroom poisoning is when you travel to a different region and think you know the mushrooms there, and that can get people into trouble. But at some point, it became clear that we're I'm sorry, I really lost my thread right there.
No, I think you actually were doing great. I mean, yeah, the Mushroom Hunting Foundation is here because we should be out hunting for mushrooms more. I mean, I was talking to somebody last week about this. Think about how many people have casually dabbled in gardening. A lot
Mhm.
of people, right? Like where
Yeah.
I come from, it's normal to have a small garden. Like
Mhm.
everybody's got a small garden. But 10 years ago, the number of people that have ever grown any sort of mushroom was essentially non-existent, or the number of people who went out and foraged for mushrooms. And I'm from Michigan, so there's a small little culture of morel hunters for sure out there.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, this is rare. So I think that's amazing. Just bringing people out. That is like the agenda, is to just get people out,
It is.
breaking
Oh,
And
down
what we
and
this
have
that's
to do
stigma.
also through the foundation is foster a sense of conservation, making people think about being stewards of the land and protecting nature's
Yeah.
resources, and not just kind of greedily grabbing everything like nature's supermarket, but kind of like taking the time to get more appreciative of connected to our food sources, connection to nature. When you see a little kid who's suddenly so excited about mushrooms and plants, it's like that's a reason to protect the earth. That's a reason for
Yep.
these natural spaces to become preserved. And that's a
Mhm.
huge part of what we do is through the foundation.
And we realize we are using these resources, but mushrooms are renewable. They do grow back from that mycelium, which survives the winter and survives people or animals picking the mushrooms, as it were. But we realize we're using this resource, but think of deer hunters and how much land has been conserved so that people can have land to hunt deer on. I mean, it's like some environmentalists must think deer hunters are awful, but if you consider that and how much natural land, wild land is preserved for that reason, anyway, things sort of dovetail together. But one thing I wanted to say to circle back to the idea of the stigma, I finally remembered that thread I lost back there, which is that people would be like, "Oh, grandma, can you like not come out of the woods with mushrooms around my friends? They're starting to wonder if you're a witch or a gypsy or something."
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
like
Makes us look
you said, it
poor
makes us look
and,
poor, right?
you
Now,
know,
foraging is that
Yeah.
scavenging,
but
and as you
no.
said, Mr. Michael Geeky,
Oh, I never thought about this.
people looking at it like, um, we get our food from cans. This is America. Everything's mechanized. What's wrong with you wanting to get
Right.
food from the forest? That's insane.
Yeah. Man, you've taken hundreds and thousands of people out into the woods. Now, these are all people that come from the same society we're just talking about that has these stigmas, that have these reservations. Tell me some interesting stories. Is there like a common thread? Like, I can tell you this, I have taken people out and said, "Oh, we're gonna go home and cook that up." And man, they go, "I'm good. I'm good." Like, so
True
talk
stories.
to me about how you work through those reluctant people that just can't believe that you can really eat these mushrooms.
So two stories spring to mind. We know a great couple from Prudence Island in Rhode Island, where we're from. One of the islands off the coast. This is even more remote than Block Island. There's a lovely couple there grow giant pumpkins. Anyway, he also gardens garlic and has a efficient. He loves hen of the woods mushrooms. So he pickles them in an old Italian fashion, always boiling them and then marinating them and pickling them in jars, which is delicious with onions and garlic and herbs and spices. And you can taste the maitake or the hen of the woods, like some, through the marinade, and it's a good mushroom pickle. But we could not convince him whatsoever to break tradition and saute a hen of the woods to eat it, even though we did so right in front of him. He just wouldn't
Oh,
wasn't part
wow.
of his tradition. So and then we recently did a class with another man who is from an Italian heritage who only knew one mushroom, the signorine, hen of the woods, senorita, whatever they say, and
No, this is a guy
he
who
wouldn't eat anything else.
his son got him a gift certificate for one of our deluxe private classes. So he's like, okay, this is cool. I'll do the class. But he told us at the beginning, look, guys, I know one mushroom, the signorine, and I don't need to know anymore. I'm not going to poison myself. Let's just, So he sort of established that at the beginning.
But at every one of our mushroom festival classes, which is the deluxe class where we do a presentation and then a walk and then cooking in your kitchen, we serve up 5 samples: mushroom tea, a little mushroom dessert, and then some samples in between. And he tried every one. He was blown away and said that black trumpets were a game changer for him. He had
Game
tried
changer.
chicken
Game
Yes.
many
changer.
times. He tried chicken of the woods, but he didn't like it because he was picking older specimens that weren't good and tender
Right.
and they weren't fresh and they developed cardboardiness or sourness. And like some people who are foragers try to sell mushrooms that are in that position, or you'll see posts
Yeah.
with like millions of likes and it's like this old crusty chicken mushroom. It's like, do you know the
Yeah.
difference between the fresh one? That's not gonna taste that good when you get ready at home. So it can be a lot of poundage when you get big mushrooms like that, but you have to assess them for freshness too. And
Yeah,
it
that's
was
the
cool to see some people who are so set in their ways, and other people that you can really change their minds and thusly change their lives. When you feed people new flavors, some people can forget the name of a mushroom, but you'll never forget the way that it tasted.
Oh, yeah.
we there are certain students of ours too. A certain few spring to mind, but there's different levels of diving into mushroom hunting, and even to the extent of, as Gary Linkoff once put it, he, this isn't a direct quote, but something like, "Just drop everything you're doing and just devote your life
Just
to mushrooms."
Yep.
And we didn't know that quote until we actually had already done that, but it rang true for us for sure.
Yeah, it really fascinates me, if you can just get the person over that first trepidation of like trying the mushroom. So I frequently will have friends where they have to watch me eat it. They will actually wait an hour or two. And it like just had this. I made some maitake jerky, and there were some people that oh no, I'm good, I'm good, I'm good. But they watch me eating it all day. And then finally they come around and go, let me give one of them a try. And then they go, oh my God, I can't believe I wasn't eating this.
I
I'm
know.
glad you mentioned that. That made me think of an aspect of our classes that we never really talk about. But when we collect mushrooms that we're going to bring to our deluxe classes, where we actually cook wild mushrooms, a series of different really special species with different flavors, um, we we collect them and cook them and freeze them and then bring them along for the right number of people that are in the class. And we have to consider, when we're collecting and cooking mushrooms, what condition are these in? Are they fresh enough? When we serve these things, we want to snack on them too. We're like dying to have a bite while we're watching the
Right.
students eat them. But also, it is reassuring to them when they see us grab a piece and eat it.
Yeah.
As you said, it's like, all right, he's doing it, so he's not going to die. I mean, sometimes you need to
Right.
see that there's a real
Yeah.
threshold of
Trust.
Yeah, like eating a Caesar mushroom raw out in the woods and just slicing off a piece and just being like, "Yeah, this is one you can eat raw." And they just sit there a minute like,
So good.
"Really? Really?" And then you don't die, so they give it a try. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, you have to demonstrate that stuff to some people. The stigma is so real from the earliest ages. People are told all mushrooms are poisonous. My kid, he's in kindergarten. He just he found some mushrooms in on the playground or like the fringes of the playground, and he brings it and shows it to the teacher, and he already can ID quite a few edible mushrooms and knows them by name. And he goes up and shows the teacher some honey mushrooms, and she's like, "Oh, go put those back. You don't want to touch those." And he goes, "No, you can touch them. They're these are edible. You can eat these mushrooms." And she goes, "Oh, no, 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 no." And they literally talk to me about it. Like, "Oh, he's
Yeah.
why is he picking mushrooms?" And I'm like, most mushrooms are not poisonous. They might not taste good, and almost no mushrooms are gonna truly kill you. There are a few, but, and they were
There's
just
plenty of
like,
unknown edibility mushrooms out there
yeah,
too, and your field guide will
yeah,
say unknown, and you don't know to check with this. But,
Yeah.
but what you're saying is absolutely true, and there's, no mushrooms in America that can hurt you if I'm touching them.
part of learning about the mushroom goes beyond, especially if the goal is to eat the edible, tasty mushrooms. IDing it is one part of it, but then also knowing when you need to harvest it. Imma tell you right now, chicken of the woods, I mean, the number of times I find it versus the number of times I find it where I'm actually gonna harvest it, that's a big discrepancy.
Yes.
Absolutely,
I mean, how many
absolutely.
times have you walked up on going, "Man, if I was here 2 days ago, man, oh
Mhm,
man," right?
mhm.
So
But
that's a whole nother part of that. Talk about that education and how you've watched people evolve who come back and do more and more of your classes, how they learn to become better and better foragers.
absolutely, I mean, what you're saying is true. Some people can have a bad experience with a mushroom like chicken of the woods or black standing polypore if they get it too soon, but Ryan teaches people all the time through text
If they
messaging.
get it too late, I mean,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, if they
Yeah.
get it way too late, it can be tough,
Yep.
stringy, and inedible,
right.
but
It's
Ryan, he does a lot to in text messaging people. He's like a doctor with a pager. If you send a picture of a mushroom, Ryan will get back to you and tell you what it is and all the information about it, and he's changed people's minds on species like black standing polypore because, it can be absolutely delicious when
Oh,
you get it when it's
tasty.
really
Yeah.
fresh and really
Yeah.
young.
and some of
Um,
it, yeah, has to do with techniques that are perhaps best taught in person, although I have done some pages that explain it. But we do something called the Brandt knife test, which is named for our friend of ours, Joe Brandt, who invented it. Which is you take a mushroom knife and you say your hand is your hand is the mushroom here, the shelf, and you sort of see how far in the knife goes, and say it goes to there. Okay, well, that's the depth of the tender parts. You cut along that much of it. That didn't really demonstrate it too well, but the idea is
No, that makes total sense. Yeah.
you use the feel of the knife to figure out the tender parts. If you have to saw at it, I mean, I know it's just a mushroom. You could shove the knife through it if you wanted, but don't. It's like where the knife glides through it easily, you can
Yep.
slice that part off easily, and you'll be able to enjoy chewing it, cooking it, and chewing it.
Yep.
Whereas the deeper parts towards the central core of it are going to be leathery and woody, and indeed, like Emily was talking about, this guy in his 70s who said, he doesn't like chicken of the woods. He tried it a bunch of times and it was awful every time. And it's like you said, though, Mr. MycoGeeky, or I'll call you geeky, I guess, like your friends do. You mentioned people trying it and concluding that it was bad because it's or no, what you mentioned is that half the time you find it, or maybe more than half, it's like, I don't want that one because you
Yeah.
can tell from its appearance and through your experience, you know that it's grown too wide and thin and tough and leathery. And that's unfortunate because some of the biggest mushrooms are the most tough and leathery. Although with
Oh, but hen of the woods though, it stays fresh all the way through the core. One year we actually there's a
Yep.
picture that we shared with you. We found one that was 20 pounds. 20-pound hen of the woods was gigantic. There's a picture of it that later on that you can show the crowd, the listeners. But the interesting thing is that a few years later, the same exact tree put out a 23.5-pound hen of the woods. We were leading a class with, so the students got to keep that one, but most of it was still really good meat because hen of the woods doesn't stiffen up like other polypores tend to do.
Yep. Yeah, but you can do a whole class on just cleaning one of them big heads up. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's like
sure,
Ryan says, it's like cleaning a
Good
fish.
job.
It's certain art
Yep.
to it.
Yep.
if you were to cut this thing right in half, the cross section of it would look white inside and kind of like a cauliflower. Like there's a
Yep.
trunk and branches, and yeah, it's a whole thing. You got the caps that are already the perfect width, perfect thickness for sautéing, and then you got thicker parts that you would want to sort of slice up more and saute them because
Yep.
We like
that's
taking the trunk meat, making big steaks out of them, and just giving them a good with a bacon press or a griddle press or something.
Oh
Get a
yeah.
nice sear on a big piece of maitake or a nice prawn that's a nice size but the perfect thickness to fry up whole.
and it's when you got
That's the advantage to the wild maitake versus the cultivated maitake. You get a cultivated maitake, it's like the size of your fist, and it's adorable and it's tender and it's great. You can shred it up; it's got the
Right.
same flavor. But you get a wild hen, you get a 5 or 6 pound one. You get excuse my language, freaking 20-pound one to get on occasion. I
Yep.
mean, we've heard stories about larger than that, 100-pound hens, because they can grow 5 or 6 around a tree. And if you're
Yep.
really crafty, you always check around the tree because we found mushrooms that other mushroom hunters left behind because they only got the hen on the one side near the path.
Yep.
Didn't have the sense to check all the way around. There's 6 or 7 others growing in the root system.
right.
So yeah, check always around the whole tree.
Yeah, I tell you what, the number of times I go, what the hell? Like I see this big old oak. I'm just gonna walk over there. I mean, I kind of from where I'm at, I think I can see three of the sides. I don't think there's anything there. And I would say 1/3 of the time that I walk further into the woods, I go look on the other side, and then there it is. It's always just hiding from you half the time.
Mhm. And then
Yeah.
you sometimes can spend all day in the woods and be empty-handed, and then you're suddenly driving through the parking lot
Yep.
of to get dinner, and there's a big mushroom all
Yep.
of a sudden up the tree. So
And of course
Probably an oyster mushroom, but yes.
yeah,
that
they're
that
always
does
around.
bring up the other important point about not that this is one of our classes, but I just thought I'd mention it's an important point of foraging, which is you don't collect mushrooms to eat from an area that seems like it's polluted. So
Right.
the side
Yeah.
of a
Oh, yeah.
highway or a golf course or anywhere where the lawn looks perfect and not really natural, probably a lot of chemicals involved. And the
Yeah.
mycelium can absorb that type of stuff and it can end up in the fruiting bodies, the mushrooms. So you don't want to
Yep.
do that. Although of course there's the technology of mycoremediation using the mycelium to break down toxic chemicals and then remove that whole mess and sort of I think
Yep.
in the future we're going to see um, rather than having toxic waste dumps that need to be remediated, it's going to be like, okay, this particular chemical needs to go in this type of vat that has a certain fungus that's going to break it down.
Yeah.
If only, if only.
Well, maybe in the future, like I said,
Yep.
but yeah. So
Speaking of that kind of micromediation, oyster mushrooms that are commonly grown, easily grown on anything, and they're great for micromediation, like cleaning up oil spills, things like that. But I love oyster mushrooms; 'cause they're so tasty. Like talking again about how edible ones versus wild ones. The wild ones can get so much bigger. Like oyster mushrooms can be a little flimsier and substantial if you get them at farmers markets, and you got to get rid of the whole trunk sometimes because it can be really woody and tough. Like the little stems that they grow off of can be really tough, which is great for making a super stock, but what you're paying for is by the pound. So, you're
Yep.
getting those little caps, but in the wild, oh my goodness, they can grow oyster caps,
oh man, we've seen huge one. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
like
Oh
There's
yeah.
some in the pictures that we shared with you if you wanna share some of those pictures with the listeners.
with some
Oh
of the
yeah.
wild ones, we'll just fry up like two big oyster caps and a piece of cheese on a sandwich, and it's like it's too big to even bother putting a burger patty on there.
Come
It's
on
just
now.
Yep.
a
So good.
Yep.
mushroom sandwich.
Yeah, I tell you
Oh,
what,
thank you.
the difference the difference between wild, I mean, so to go back when you guys were talking about agaricus bisporus in the grocery store, I found some agaricus. It wasn't bisporus, it was something else. But anyway, I would it and chopped it up and cooked it up for my 9-year-old. I think she was 8 at the time. And I told her, these are just like the button mushrooms that you get at the store, only wait till you taste them. And he's like, why do people eat the mushrooms from the store? And I go, I mean, you're asking the $1,000,000 question.
That's right. That's right. And
Yeah.
if you guys out there these are questions for cultivators to figure out. How can you get some of the cultivated mushrooms to reach the size and
Yeah.
sometimes the flavor intensity of some of the wild ones? I mean, that's like you said, that's $1,000,000 question.
Yep.
And then another thing would be, well, see, I have this sort of dream of at some point partnering up with a large scale grower with some of my ideas of what mushrooms ought to be cultivated for their flavor. Now, one of the things that gets in the way of that is some of the best mushrooms, right? Um, can't be cultivated basically because they grow
Yeah.
from a mycorrhizal mycelium. So
Yep.
you guys that
Yeah.
are cultivating, you're growing cubies or whatever you're growing. They're different gourmet edibles. You're growing mushrooms where the mycelium is a decomposer mycelium. It breaks down stuff like wood or the grain
Right.
pellets and things like that. And
But the
uh,
mycorrhizal relationship is more complicated and can't really be easily mimicked. Things like truffles, chanterelles, black trumpets,
Yep.
those are the mycorrhizal species. And myco referring to fungus, rhizo referring to rhizomes. The mycelium interlaces with the rootlets of those trees, exchanging water and nutrients for the sugars that the tree is producing through photosynthesis. So they're both
Yep.
being fed and happy and getting these, different chemical signals and things.
so it's
Been
good
said
for
that
the
the mycelial
trees.
network's intelligent.
It's good for the trees, and it's a wonderful thing that's out in the forest. But good luck trying to recreate that in a
Right.
Right.
lab. Now,
Yeah.
truffles, which are basically just usually we collect the mushroom above ground and the mycelium is underground. Well, truffles are the mycelium is underground and the mushrooms are underground too. But the mycelium of truffles is a mycorrhizal one, so it requires living trees, and it's good
Yep.
for those trees. But it needs living oak trees, and people have really gone out on a limb to attempt to figure out how to farm these mycorrhizal mushrooms because truffles in particular are so valuable, right?
Yeah, the
Yep.
problem being in having to inoculate saplings of oak trees and then waiting like 12 to 15 years to see if it worked or not. I mean, you need a lot of space, you need a lot of time, you need a lot of
Yep.
technique. You crack the code, though. $1,000,000 question.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some Norwegian. I forget if it was Norway or where it was in Europe. I know there are a few species that are actomycorrhizal that they are farming in China and in places in Europe, but they're
Cool.
literally setting up entire stands, like you say, right? They're inoculating the ground and planting these saplings very young, and it's a long game, right? They're putting a lot into it. And
Right,
they
and
got
waiting,
these 20-year-old trees, so, they got a 20-year game plan that they've been waiting to do this on, all because, as you guys know, some of the best tasting mushrooms on earth are ectomycorrhizal, which makes the Mushroom Hunting Foundation all the more important, because as far as it goes right now, if you want boletes, I mean, some of my favorite mushrooms are boletes.
Mm,
I can't cultivate them.
That's right.
I mean, I've taken tissue samples, try to get them to grow in petri dishes, and they don't even want to go. They don't work outside of that environment. So
Wow.
yeah,
Oh,
it's a
it's
noble effort.
yeah. Good for
just
you for giving it a try. And that's the kind of
just
feeling
farting around. Yep, trying to see what things do.
What are some of
Uh,
your favorite flavors in the bolete group?
oh man, I like Separins. I really like lilac boletes a lot. Yeah, they're
neither.
really good. And then
Okay.
obviously all the kings, and what else do I like?
You guys get
Have you
the
tried like some
bicolors?
species?
Beringia bicolor look
Oh,
weird, but
Yeah.
they're pretty tasty too. Yeah,
Oh,
but
those is my favorite bully, and probably above the king bully. I love
Yeah, I'm
bicolor
with
bully.
Emily on that. I think the
They have
bicolor's better than the king.
pistachio-like flavor. We've made an ice cream out of them before. Bicolor
ooh,
bully, I thought it tasted like pistachio ice cream, but it was like a butter rum, butter crunch kind of
mm,
flavor. It was outstanding. We made a couple of mushroom ice creams, and none of them were bad.
Well, back
Um,
man,
to the bullets
but
though.
back to the
I
boletes. Have you tried like Cynum boletes? That genus,
what
like
ones?
saber stalks. They have like little
I no, I haven't
punctuations.
found any.
We have some pictures of them, but those
Oh,
are really delicious.
It's another whole
Everyone we've
thing.
served them to is like, "What is that?" You know, it's like some Ryan
yeah,
describes it as being like meat from another planet because you can't describe what
yeah,
it is, but it's certainly something savory.
nice. Yeah, I mean, okay, you guys finally got me. Let's look at some of these pictures. Now you got me excited. I want to see all these.
Oh, we kind of covered this already. Just a little like about our foundation. You can reach us at mushroomhunting.org, though. We're always available for classes and lessons. We just teach people how to safely enjoy local edible wild mushrooms and plants, essentially.
Love it.
Just Brian and I got married fairly recently. We've been together doing this for so long, more than a decade. But here he is teaching a class where we do, it's for a larger organization or smaller groups. That was for the Brown College alumni. I think
Oh,
that
cool.
was that photo.
Yeah, that was for staff, and so let's not
You can
say
just
where
go
these
through these
different
kind of
pictures are
quick.
from.
But this is
Okay.
a really good collage Ryan put together. Ryan's made some previous publications, and this is a page from one of them. None of them we have for sale anymore because they're all out of print. But this was just some of the best mushroom hunting we had through the years.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was well, I'll talk more about my book when the book comes up on the screen.
Sure. Yeah, I think I put it in there. And just what we do, a big part of what we do is cooking right from the forest. So forest to table experiences is our bread and butter. And don't forget the
Yeah,
butter and salt.
look at that guy on the right. That guy on the right, he's standing in judgment over that pan of mushrooms.
He's
He
delivering
can't
cookies.
decide if am I gonna do it? I don't know.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
favorite question to ask people at the end of the day is who didn't like anything?
yeah,
And it's like crickets,
yeah. That's great.
That's just an example of some wild flavors. We got a whole mess of stuff, but I think there's some really good Sandler carriers up front, the purple ones there.
That was an October day.
Ooh,
Yeah, a bunch of stuff there. I don't know if the Lexinum boletes are going to come up again, so I might as well point them out. The sort of larger burnt orange colored mushrooms towards the back is some
Yeah,
of
the hen of the woods
the
there.
yep,
orange cap Lexinums.
yeah, those are cool.
And here we are with this kind of rare sporaceous species, the cauliflower mushroom.
Yep.
We don't encounter it all that often.
Yeah, I haven't seen
Another,
Yeah,
one this year. From
every
that.
time I've encountered it, I can't eat it because it's all desiccated, and yeah, I've never found it at the right time yet, unfortunately.
We have a problem with that too. Yep, for a stretch of 5 or 6 years there, we kept finding, just like you said, find old messed up ones, and yeah, it's frustrating. They don't seem to return. Some mushrooms are somewhat predictable, like hen of the woods. You can check that spot. The cauliflower just seems to
Oh,
pop up when it
does
wants
what it
to,
wants when it wants.
and it
yeah,
often doesn't come back. We found it just
yeah.
doesn't reappear.
And here's the
Um,
cover of Ryan's most recent publication.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
very cool.
it really was a book. There, like after the December page, there was a whole spate of book pages attached to it, and it was a real book. But working on something new. But that was very influential, actually, especially around New England and New York. There were a lot
Sold
of
over about 5,000 copies. We have a
Wow,
couple
awesome.
received.
and we got out to Michigan in the year 2019. We attended a couple of morel festivals out there, and we got this book out to a good number of people in the Midwest through those festivals.
Yeah, we went to the one in Boyne City and Mesick, Michigan as well. Both morel festivals there.
Yeah,
Awesome.
very
I
different.
think the
two
next
very
picture
different
might
and
be
great
from our vending
festivals.
booth there.
Yeah, we I'm gonna tell you right now, Michiganders, we'll show up for some morels. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
That's for sure.
So we went out there. That was our booth from the Michigan Fair. We stayed for about 3 days. It was
Nice.
it was like a frost warning that night. It was so cold. The morel year was pretty bad, but the false morels were abundant that year.
Nice.
Here we are with some really nice ones. Oh yes,
Oh yeah.
they'll come out from morels.
Now, I'm sure, as a Midwest guy, I'm sure you've seen a bigger morel than that.
That's a good size one though for the Midwest, I think. Yeah.
That's from Vermont, actually. That
Oh,
one big
okay.
one that I'm holding there.
Sadly, morels are rare in our home state. In our home state,
Oh.
Rhode Island, we have trouble finding them. They do grow, and we have seen them. But oddly, we have to go out more toward Massachusetts or
Yeah.
Connecticut to find more of them. And here's one of our foraging knives that we had made, with the Mushroom Hunting Foundation engraved in it. But
Love it.
we sell those on our website. But it's just a nice group of morels there. Who doesn't like those things?
I love them. There you go. No, you guys aren't proud of these morels, are you? I can't tell. I
Not
can't
at
tell.
all.
Now, that doesn't happen every day, but that was
Yeah.
a good day we had in sort of the western half of New England.
Nice.
And, well, not to go off on much of a tangent, but there was somewhat of a close encounter with a bear
And cubs
and
watching us
bear
picking
cubs.
these morels.
Yeah, so
Wow.
let's not go into the whole thing, but yeah,
Dang.
there was a part of it was a bear, and the other part of it was some very steep slopes, and I found some of the biggest ones growing singly on some rather steep slopes. And I've actually read that in the Alps and in parts of Europe where mushroom hunting is more widespread and popular, every year more people die from falling off cliffs reaching for
What?
edible mushrooms than the number
Wow.
of people who die from eating poisonous mushrooms.
That's the
Because
way to go right there. Don't die eating the wrong mushroom. Die trying to pick the right one.
that's
Yeah.
right.
But also pictured in this photo are some of the really good pheasant polypore, which some
Yeah.
people kind of sneer at and consider like a consolation prize if you're not finding morels, but they're really delicious in their own right. A lot of people compare them to ground beef when their flavor is cooked up, but fresh, they smell like watermelon rind or
Mhm.
cucumber. They're so good.
The pheasant.
The pheasant polypore, which
Yeah.
also is nicknamed bear's bread, I guess. And we found out through that location that bears will definitely eat pheasant polypore because we found a lot of nibbled pheasant polypores
Ah,
where we were finding these morels near the bear's den. But there was a lot of morels in that area.
I
nice.
suspect that the bear's bread may have been in reference to the young hemlock reishi.
Oh, was it?
Possibly, but
Common
but
information?
but yeah, the both young
definitely eat these.
polypores that
We saw
bears
those
and
nibbled
other
raw.
animals will eat. Yeah, been
Yeah,
time.
and this is just good to show people too who don't know. These are often. I mean, I don't think calling it the consolation prize is too far off because for sure, if you're not finding morels, there's a good chance you will find some pheasants.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've seen them.
they kind of pop at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. You said like quite steep embankments. I think me and a couple buddies that go out, like about 30 degrees. I mean, definitely embankments, hands down for sure. How steep are you talking? Like super, super steep?
Not super steep. I mean, I didn't have
Okay.
any gear or anything, but it was there were points where I was definitely using the trees to
Oh, wow. Okay.
get
Yeah.
around and down. And there was another hilarious moment where I went up over this fallen log and got entangled in vines with both of my feet. And at the last
Wow.
minute, as I almost pitched headlong over this log, I grabbed my walking stick from behind and whipped it in front of me and stabbed it into the ground. So then I'm hanging there hanging by both feet with my arms sticking my walking stick into the ground, going, "What
Nice.
the hell?" So that was there was quite an adventure on that steep slope.
Yeah.
But
Hey,
yeah,
if you're not risking your life for these mushrooms, I mean,
They
yeah,
don't taste as good.
they don't
So,
taste as good.
no,
No,
I don't know.
exactly. Oh,
Here
now
are
I'm jealous. Now I'm
my
jealous.
favorite species is the black trumpet. Even
Man.
above morels, I love black trumpet mushrooms.
Yeah.
They have such a versatile, smoky flavor. They're so good in anything. I put them
That's
in.
a serving for me right there. That's a serving.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
Yes.
That was
Oh
about a
yeah.
weekend. And this picture was a little bit of a joke because the common name horn of plenty or cornucopia mushroom, Latin name, used to be cornucopioides. So the
Mhm.
cornucopia mushroom or whatever, we collected all these at thrift stores, the cornucopias, until we could fill them with cornucopioides. And
Love it.
Yeah, it was
and
sort
by
of.
then they changed the Latin names.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, I just started every time I saw a cornucopia. Like I think the first time I was like, "Weird, this is an actual cornucopia." It was at a yard sale, and I was like, I think I'm going to get this." And then, a few years went by, and next thing I knew, I had probably more horns of plenty than anybody.
Nice. Yeah, those look great.
Yeah, there's an 11-pound hen in the woods, but the largest
Yeah.
gilt mushroom we've ever seen was a laughing Jim, and that's the orange species near
Look,
Ryan's head.
wow, that's a Gymnopilus latifolius back there. What?
Sure
That's
is.
right. Yep. And
Look,
that's about 2/3 of it. There was one other big piece of the cap that broke off.
man.
There's a funny story about that actually. So yeah, that's true. The largest single gilled mushroom we ever found was a hallucinogenic mushroom.
Wow.
We were driving down the street, and you got to be careful driving. You don't like driving while mushroom hunting is not too smart, but
Right.
you can still, driving around, you can glance at trees and glance into people's yards and stuff. And of course, you always want to ask for permission if you're going into somebody's yard to pick mushrooms. But anyway, we're driving along, and go past this field, and there's some trees and a little pond, and go past another place where there's a puddle, and there's this broken bird bath that looks like it toppled over, and driving on a little further, and then all of a sudden I stopped the car and I was like, that was not a bird bath. I'm kind of like reviewing the pictures in my memory, and like that what if that actually wasn't a bird bath? So we went back, and sure enough, it was not a bird bath. It was a giant laughing Jim that had tipped over of its own weight.
So
And
we got it home. It was 7.5 pounds, just one
What?
single mushroom. At that point, not active anymore.
yeah, too
Man.
old and
Yeah.
livable bugs to be 7 pounds of magic mushrooms, but
Oh,
it was pretty
man.
impressive just the same.
But if you'll notice, just below my Felix the Cat T-shirt is a giant horse mushroom cap near that
Yeah.
Amazon
Those are
house.
tasty. I love those mushrooms.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah. You
there's
can
like
find the caps that large and make a little
Yeah.
pizza on top of it.
And
Yeah.
that's something that's a relative of the portobello. And
Yep.
it surprises our students to hear that the mushrooms like that, or any mushrooms with gills, are actually sort of in the expert level category, we would say, because, and the reason it's a surprise is because all the mushrooms in the supermarket generally have gills.
Right.
The
Right.
portobello species in all its forms has gills. The shiitake has gills, and sometimes you're lucky enough to also see oyster mushrooms in the supermarket. Well, that has gills too, and there's nothing wrong with gills on a mushroom. It's just that on a mushroom farm, they've got that under control. They know what species they're growing. In
Right.
the wild, mushrooms with gills, there's literally thousands of things that it could be. So you've got to, but well, you
It's
always
such
have
a
to
large
know. You always have
family.
to know what you're doing. But with mushrooms with gills, you have to sort of extra know what you're doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's actually considered a super family, the agarics. All the guild mushrooms are just so many, so diverse.
And then to
Yep.
narrow it down to the genus Agaricus, which includes the portobello and those horse mushrooms there, and you can kind of see the family resemblance with the horse mushrooms. But
Yep.
there are a number of delicious Agaricus species out there, but that's getting towards the more difficult end of mushroom hunting. And then, of course, there's another level of difficult to ID, which is you need a microscope or even genetic analysis to figure out
Right.
what species it is. And that's sort of veering away from what we focus on.
Right. We like to teach people you don't need a microscope to get into this hobby. Maybe a jeweler's loupe or a hand lens comes in handy
Sure.
at times, but we've actually eaten over 250 species of wild mushrooms, and we've never used a microscope to identify one. I have a microscope at home. I'm trying to get into looking at spores a little bit, but we don't need to do that to get into eating.
Yeah, luckily, all the best tasting mushrooms really aren't terribly hard to ID once you have the right people teaching you. And I mean, you can read 100 books and look at 100 pictures, but there's nothing like being there right in the woods and having Ryan go, come over here a minute, let me show you this. And you get to see it, you get to smell it, you get to handle it, you get to tear it apart. That's where the learning happens for sure. But yeah, man, the agaricus, right? They taste
Yeah,
so good, but there are some of these mushrooms, like chicken of the woods, I mean, you almost can't screw it up. You'd have to be
Right.
pretty stupid to screw it up. But the agaricus, there are a fair number of not nice agarics that,
It's true.
yeah,
yes.
you just
And
they're
then
looking
on
pretty
top of that,
similar.
Geeky's talking about relatives of the portobello right in that same genus, Agaricus. Portobello is Agaricus bisporus, but you got something like Agaricus xanthodermis, which
Yep,
is mildly poisonous, will cause bad
yep,
stomach upset. And then, in addition, you could confuse an Agaricus mushroom with something from another genus altogether.
yep.
Like, for example, this is the only one I'm going to pick up on.
All right.
This is the destroying angel here,
Yeah,
and
don't eat
this
that one.
little white mushroom, that's killed the second most people in history, just behind the death cap, and
Yep.
that's
You know what?
not
No
an
angels of death and dinner.
it's not an agaricus mushroom, but it resembles one just the
Yep.
same. So, sometimes with mushroom hunting, people can get in over their heads. And I wanted to comment on what you said back there because in a way, I agree that a lot of the easiest mushrooms uh, to
Tastes
identify
good.
are very delicious. Yep,
Yep.
I mean things we consider safe for beginners, and that's an area where I would really go with what we recommend as opposed to Joe Schmo online,
Yeah.
which is like we put a lot of thought into which mushrooms we're willing to say are actually easy enough to not confuse with anything else to the point where we can say, yeah, that's safe for
Yep.
a true beginner to just sort of
Yeah.
look at pictures of it, read a paragraph about it, and you're ready to go.
In our system, if we consider something or say something is safe for beginners, it's because the only lookalikes it has are edible ones. So there's no danger in confusing it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Great example. Hen of the woods, right? Might look like
Right.
some black staining polypore, Berkeley's
Mhm.
polypore, but
Yes.
also, if you screw up
Absolutely.
the ID on that, it's not going to be a bad day
Right.
for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
geez,
Yeah.
Geeky, I'm impressed. That's exact. Those are the two species I would
Yeah.
have brought up. Yep.
Right. Whereas with that horse mushroom, there's a couple where you really don't want to screw that one up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah. The
knew?
whole
Yeah.
world of
There's a few little
difficulty
like
there.
sign bullets on the table there that I was describing to you before. I know there's better pictures of them further on though.
Yeah. Let's switch to the next one.
Cool.
Here's Ryan
There
with
we
his
go.
gorgeous
Yummy.
Jackson's Amanitas. Yep.
Yep.
Well, no, I was also impressed that you knew the Caesar's Amanita, and that's something that's we talked about stigma. I mean, even to mushroom hunters who are well versed in eating obscure wild mushrooms, the thought of taking a bite of an Amanita mushroom raw is pretty
Yeah.
horrifying. And I definitely had to do a mental backflip to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
But they are delectable, raw or
Oh,
fresh.
especially if you get a big fat one, when it's barely popped out of the universal veil and it's real chunker. Oh yeah, those are the best. I don't even honestly care too much about eating them when they're like that, but boy, they're a pretty mushroom to see. Man, they're
Yeah.
yeah,
they really are.
yeah,
And
that's a great.
just wanted to mention, we have tried this is the Jackson's Amanita. Um, we have tried it raw, but just wanted to mention, aside from the fact that it's in a genus of mushrooms that includes some very dangerous ones, so you want to be absolutely 111% sure of your ID, but also um, there's a famous joke about eating wild mushrooms when you cook them up and slice
Right.
them and cook them up, which is if there's bugs that are cooked up in there, it's just a little extra protein, right? So it's like we try to shrug that off if there's minor bug damage, but remember that's about cooked bugs.
Right.
That's about
Yes.
little
Yeah.
tiny bugs that have been shriveled up to practically nothing by the process of thorough sautéing. And eating
Yeah.
a wild mushroom raw, there's several reasons to always cook wild mushrooms, despite the fact that there are some
Yeah.
exceptions.
Bacterial contamination can occur. Insect
Yep.
damage is a sad
Yeah.
reality. Also, even some edibles are mildly toxic until they're cooked, like
Yep.
morels make you terribly sick if you eat them.
100%. Yep.
So
Yeah. I
yeah,
had a friend who.
it unlocks their nutrients. Like, there's
Yep.
so many reasons to cook them, and it develops their flavors.
Yeah. You're about the morels. I had a friend. He went morel hunting with me for the first time, and I just gave him the haul that we got, and he cooked them up and loved them and ate a lot of them. And I don't think he quite cooked them enough, and he had GI disturbance for a couple days because of that.
Ooh,
Um, My friend Don King says the best way to cook a mushroom for the first time is just cook the hell out of it. Like, better to err on the side of cooking the hell out of it. But
First time you're trying a new species. Yeah, sure. We have some thoughts about that too. In our classes, there's sort of a method for this when you're going to get into. Man, that's cool. There's a cricket in this room. I'm hoping at
mm,
some point. I'm hoping at some point you ask a question and the cricket like
mm.
goes off.
It's probably in that hen. It's
It
hiding out in
could
that
be.
hen because
It
you
could
never
be.
know what's going to be hiding out in there. Yeah.
There was a time we saw the salamander go running for its life after a
Yep.
big event.
Yep.
You'll see some things. This was when we were on we were in a magazine called Rhode Island Monthly. A photographer, Susie Sunland, took this photograph of
Cool.
us kind of early on in our foraging journey.
Nice.
Here we are, some gorgeous reishi mushrooms, the hemlock reishi, and Ryan put
Yep.
that T-shirt together. Reishi
Oh,
species.
that is hilarious, man. I love
Thank
that
you.
T-shirt.
Well,
And boy, that Sugi flush is killer. All right, so here we go. This is what I like to see right here. Big boletes. Yes.
yeah, that was fun. Although, unfortunately, that one is Tylopolis rubro-bruneus, which is
Yeah.
not poisonous but massively bitter.
Yeah.
And but it's still,
Massive is right.
it was still so much fun to
It's
find.
so cool, man. So cool.
Right.
Yeah,
And
you
example
know, I want to pick your brain. So I had somebody tell me that their rule of thumb was if you eat a bolete and it's bitter, don't eat it. And if you take a bite and it's not bitter, you're good to go. We,
that's crap.
Really
okay.
oversimplified. It's not a catch-all. There's no easy generalizations or
Okay.
platitudes, unfortunately, in mushroom hunting.
There are some situations now, in a narrowed down situation, for example, and I have given almost that exact advice to someone, but it wasn't about all boletes. If
Okay.
you have a certain kind of brown capped Tylopolis bolete, and this often happens where I say, okay, what you're looking at there, it's one of the Tylopolis boletes, it's one of the common ones, but I'm not really sure if it's the edible Baticeps or the very bitter Variobruneus or
Bro,
Violet.
I tried that one last summer. Oh my God. Life-changingly bitter. Like I could not I mean, on one level it's like, oh cool. Now my understanding of the concept of bitter has evolved. Like, wow. Wow.
I give you credit for
Wow.
trying it, even if it was a mistake. But I mean, I
No,
think
I wanted to see what that's like when they say, oh, this one's really spicy. Try this Russell or some. And then
Yeah.
you think, yeah, I like spice. That's fine. Then you're like, why did I do that?
yep, it's too bad. I say the same thing. I like spicy food, and I wish that the spicy Lactarius and Russulas were edible, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
in that narrowed down situation of like, okay, I know this is one of the milk mushrooms. Is it one of the spicy and mildly poisonous ones, or is it
Yeah.
one of the edible ones? That's a specific situation. And unfortunately, I wish the spicy ones were edible. The cinnabar red chanterelle can have an element of
pepperiness to it
spiciness to
almost,
it sometimes,
Yep.
although you have
Check
to.
out the next picture, though. It really puts it into perspective how large that bolete cap was.
Oh, that's
Dang.
a different one.
No, that was a different one from a different year.
Same
Same
spot.
shirt.
Same spot, and I randomly
Same
had
shirt.
the same shirt on, which is very odd. But,
I like it. That's you have a shirt for that mushroom. Yeah.
It's a creature for sure.
Love it.
The golden mushroom, golden chanterelles. Yes.
Always a good day right there. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a yellow brick road.
Like it.
We found some big ones in that pile. Oh yeah.
now, I have to admit, we're aware that on the West Coast these would not be big ones.
Mhm.
But out here in New England, those are very big chanterelle. You don't
Yeah.
find them like that.
Yep. Yeah, the one you're holding on the left, I think I found one here close to where I live that's maybe a hair bigger, but that's about the max right there over here. And yeah, usually they're much smaller.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And here are the wine caps. The day we got married,
Alright.
this wine cap screwing. It was excellent.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Just give me a minute. Just give me a minute to crack up that you have a wedding photo where you're holding a giant mushroom. Just give me a second. Yes, dreams do come true. I love it. That is great.
I needed an outdoor wedding. I had no idea there would be mushrooms. It made my day.
That is awesome.
Even our cake in the next picture was mushroom themed.
Man, look at that cake.
Yeah, the next picture is a close up of it.
That
We
is so
talked to the
cool.
cake artist, and we were like pretty particular. We showed them Ryan's calendar with all the visual photographs that we had taken, and we were like, "Yeah, the chicken of
Love
the
it.
woods may not, occur that often on birch, but let's do it anyway."
Yeah,
Yeah,
it looks cool. Yeah, and I mean, so just for people who've never had black trumpets, just so you know, I would rather eat black trumpets than eat frosted versions of black trumpets. They are that.
Yes, I agree. I agree. The cake really couldn't compare to the actual mushroom.
Oh
No, but
yeah,
that's pretty badass right there.
thanks, Anne.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, but I wanted to talk or hype up the Fall in Love with Fungi Fest. They're gonna have a mushroom
Okay.
festival in Rhode Island. The Mycological Society is hosting it, and we're
Okay.
gonna be having some walks. Ryan and I are gonna lead some walks separately because we did a spring fair, but there was a really huge turnout for the walk. 70 people showed up for the
Wow.
mushroom walk at 1 o'clock.
Dang.
I think
That's
everybody
great.
that came to the fair showed up to go on the mushroom walk, but it's unfortunate that people can't get a really good experience. We didn't bring our microphone that day and the backpack speakers, so we were running around. We're talking about one mushroom, people are holding another one. It can get dicey. So
Yeah, I mean, when we
we're
do
gonna
a
keep our walks at like 20, 25 to
30
30,
people, yeah.
just to
Yeah.
keep it a little bit more good, make sure everyone gets a good experience out of it.
When we do an indoor slideshow or a cooking thing indoors, that can be for a larger crowd. But with the outdoor walks, yeah, more than 20 or 30 people starts to get pretty unwieldy.
But the fair is
Yeah, and just the minute you got them bigger than even 2025, little conversations start happening, and yeah, just
Mhm.
Yes.
it's a
Oh
whole
man,
bunch of nice stuff.
absolutely. And see, I can tell you think about things in the way I do, and in a certain way, geeky, which is way. I mean, it just reminded me right there of that, like when you're thinking about what other people are thinking, like one of my concerns is that if we pass a mushroom around a large group, then over on the corner, Emily and I pick up a mushroom and start saying, "Now this one's edible," blah blah blah. Now, meanwhile, people are looking at the thing in their hand and hearing our
Right.
voice saying, "This one's
Yep.
edible."
Yep.
Don't
Yep.
leave it.
Yeah. So that can
Yeah.
get confusing, and that's the kind of thing we have to think about as teachers of something that can be dangerous if you're not paying attention.
The fair
100%.
is going to be super fun. Where there's going to be a bunch of walk schedules because it's happening all day from 12 to 4. It's going to be some live music, lots of vendors, a food truck, some educational programs, and a table talk, and identifying all the different mushrooms we find on the walks. I'm expecting to find some cool things. It's on a historic farmland, so it's a really great location.
Awesome.
Yeah, historically,
This actually happens to be my hometown, Foster, Rhode Island, which is like middle of nowhere. I actually got this book, like 100 Most Haunted Places in America or something, and Foster was in there on the index saying it was like uninhabited because it was such a haunted town. There's a
Because
lot of haunted history in Rhode Island.
ghosts love mushrooms, right? So there you go. There you
But
go.
yeah, it's a great mushrooming habitat because there is so much woods in Foster.
Awesome.
and in the past at that location, we've sort of found the perfect combination of like, okay, this is a good edible species, and like, okay, this is a really strange and interesting species that's not edible, but like, let's check this out because you don't
Mhm.
see this every day. It's been a great place to have a mushroom festival, so we're
Yeah.
glad that the Rhode Island Mycological Society is developing this thing of having mushroom festivals in Rhode Island. It's
Yeah, my friend Dina
Love it.
Thomas, Dina Tempest Thomas spearheaded the Rhode Island Mycological Society's development, and she is really good and organized. Her friend Allie Poole is doing the event coordination, getting vendors organized, and the next few photos are pictures from the Spring Fest. We're going to do the guided walk on the farm trails, of course, but we actually were hyping some spring species, so we brought some morels and some pheasant polypores along to show people what they look like at the table.
Nice.
Selling our
Yeah,
mushrooms.
look at all those people. Yeah, that's awesome.
Some people came dressed like mushrooms. It was fabulous. This year, we're going to have a costume parade with a prize. So people are encouraged to come dressed up as mushrooms and fairies. That's going to be a
Love
fun
it.
thing for this year's fair.
that looks like your icon.
Yeah.
Who?
The
Oh, my logo. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, little
Well,
rainbow
actually, no,
ghost.
she's not.
Yeah.
She's all rainbowed out. I guess she's not
Yeah.
dressed as a mushroom, but some of the other people were
Yeah.
like
Cool.
mushrooms and rainbows and all kinds.
Man,
It's
what
like,
is the deal with there is such a flex in the mushroom community where when you get together at an event, it's like, what obscure mushroom clothes can you find?
I know it, right?
Oh my gosh, I love it. It's great. I feel so
Yeah.
inadequate because I don't have enough mushroom clothes. But yes, I mean, like everybody's got to wear their mushroom clothes.
one time I went to a foray and I was wearing one of my mushroom t-shirts, and this guy came up to me and was like, like everybody's here into mushrooms. You don't like you don't have to wear a mushroom t-shirt at the mushroom thing, man. It's a little like on the nose, don't you think? And I was like,
Where else
dude,
can we
like
wear
fuck off.
Yeah, dude. Like what?
I have
There's
a
see,
mushroom.
there are that makes me feel good. There's still trolls in real life. I feel like usually there's just trolls online now, but at least
Right,
there's
some
still
people have
some
the
real
balls to
life
do it in
trolls.
real life. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, people's just selling art and
yeah,
different kinds of things at the fair. It was a really fun time.
love it.
We had a table as well, so you could draw and create. Some great people were there, knowledgeable folks like Bill Ewell in the next photo. Um,
Yeah, that's Bully Bill himself there. Bill Ewell is Bully Bill,
Yeah,
he's very knowledgeable, not just about boletes, but yeah, he does have a special thing for boletes, as do I. I mean, a lot of mushroom hunters love them. Um, but there's so many
he's a
people we've
friend from
learned
the
from.
Yeah, a friend from the Connecticut Westchester Mycological Association, or COMA is their acronym, which I think is really a delightful pun. But from the COMA Club, we've met some really great folks like Bill Ewell and others who have taught us a lot.
yeah. I mean, I know his name. I've never met him. We are Facebook friends, but
Uh,
yeah,
Stand up guy.
he seems like one of the local legends for sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
just look at his frickin' hat.
I
Like,
know,
there
right?
you go. Like, yes, 100%.
Talk about your Myco wisdom. So
If
make
there's
sure
a
you're in
real life,
attendance at
yeah.
the fall fair.
Yeah. All right, there we go. Boy, I mean, there's nothing like seeing just a massive flush of chickens. I don't like it
Mhm.
never gets old, does it?
This
It
one
really
was so
does.
tender, it actually bled yellow when we cut into it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we actually there's a picture from after cutting that we used to sort of contrast. Like, okay, when you slice a nice fresh chicken, it might even be juicy enough to be
Yeah.
like dripping this orange juice. Whereas if you slice a dry cardboardy one, it's like some kind of
Yeah.
busted up chalk.
Yep.
Um, and that was
Yeah.
one of the more fun chicken finds we
Your
had.
what did you call your knife test again?
Oh, the Brandt knife test,
Yes. I think
BRANDT.
that is great.
That's our
That
friend
is
Joe Brandt from the Coma Club. Taught us a lot about mushrooms. Him and his wife, Kathy Brandt, they do a lot of the mushroom foray cooking.
mhm.
So he taught us a lot about gathering polypores.
Yeah, I could actually I could break a piece off of it before the end. I can break a piece off of this chicken of the woods and
Oh, and
demonstrate
show
that.
it. Yeah, cool. Yeah, growing up I'm from Michigan and we grow a lot of asparagus up there, like big thick asparagus. And the problem with the bottom of asparagus, right, is it gets a little reedy. So our trick was you would hold the asparagus on each end and you would bend the fat lower end, and wherever it broke was where was the good tender part of the asparagus. So when you were talking about that, it made me kind of think of that where you're trying to do a knife test, like it should just kind of easily go through that tissue, and if you're working too hard at it, you're probably not going to want to chew on that part of that mushroom.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yep.
a hard thing to explain, but it's sort of going by the feel.
Yep.
Oh, they have some of the bicolors. Oh,
Yep.
yes, that was a
Yeah.
good summer.
Yum. 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 Some horse
Mhm.
mushroom. Yeah,
Yeah.
love it. Man, you guys'
Monster
hauls are
saga.
just
The
you
monster
guys just
saga
have
here.
epic haul after epic haul. Like, I need to come up to
The
Rhode
Mushroom
Island.
Association gets it done.
Man, these are just
So much.
like most people got one photo like this, maybe one tops. You guys
It's
just
kind of
photo after photo.
if we actually made a point to lay all our stuff out on a table every time, like wow,
Uh,
We never get anything done.
yeah,
yeah,
we've sort of had to put a moratorium on these, like, look at this giant collection photos,
yeah,
because on one hand, it's neat to see, but on the other hand, it takes a lot of time,
yep,
and it also, there's a point where it's like, okay, enough bragging, like,
yeah, sure,
we've found a shit ton of it too. Let's not
yep,
weigh it all and put numbers out
yep.
there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the cube community is this way. When you first start growing mushrooms, right, you want to show off your tubs. And then if you get a big mushroom, you want to go, oh, look, I'm in the 100-gram club, So somebody puts the mushroom on the scale, says, look, I grew a 100-gram fruit, then a 200-gram fruit, then 300-gram fruit. And after a while, you've grown all these mushrooms. And there's a point where you're like, okay, I've showed off. I've done that now. Not now. I don't. That impulse goes away after a certain amount of time.
Ryan has
Makes sense.
finally come to the realization that he has enough pictures of old man of the woods boletes or certain species. It's like,
Right.
okay, I have the perfect picture dozens of times over. Maybe I don't need
Yeah.
to stoop for this one. But
Now,
every mushroom is unique, so
Yeah.
you said
it's hard
something
not to get enthusiastic.
you said something that really got my attention back there about, psilocybe growers sort of wanting to grow bigger ones. Why not? And I'm thinking right now, geez, I'd love to eat just the cap of one of those giant
Yeah.
ones you were talking about. And I wonder if some of the psilocybe growers might be the very people to figure out how
Oh,
to
yeah.
break that code of how do we get these cultivated edible not psychedelics, but just like
Yep.
edible mushrooms for food use.
Yep.
How do we get them bigger and better? You
Yeah.
guys might know more about that than the damn mushroom cultivator farms do. I don't know.
I mean, there are guys like Gary Hefferly of Fresh from the Farm Fungi. He definitely breeds for that. Who else is doing some of that work? Yeah, but there are some YouTube guys who are doing that stuff. But it's a whole lot of work. A whole lot of work. And I think the commercial guys are still probably the right guys for doing that. But it's just a whole lot of breeding and going back to spore and then cloning and going back to like over and over and over again. But I'm gonna have a guy on here shortly. We're getting deep on substrate science. And I think a lot of it's probably in this it's maybe 50% the strain and 50% the where it's growing from, because that
Nature or
informs.
nurture.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Nature. It's a one. So it's both. Yes, it's
Yeah.
probably both. Yep.
Here's that
Uh,
giant hen that we had seen,
yeah,
the 20-pounder.
man,
The
that is a.
next picture really gives you a sense of how large it
Uh,
was.
I could make so much good food out of that. Yes.
And here's the like sign bolete that we'll find.
Cool.
Sometimes they're more late season. They grow like October, even into like early November.
Yeah.
And they like sandy soils. It's really kind of weird to find them. Even the buttons are gigantic.
Yep.
So they make really good. The Lexinus have an interesting staining reactions. They'll stain blue sometimes, or and
Mhm.
green and like reddish. They'll stain like pretty much any rainbow color. I mean, and then they'll blacken. So
Mm.
the meat will blacken as you cook it or as it dries too.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
oh, they're so delicious. The flavor
Now,
is super deep and savory.
I
Really nice.
like here. Let me see if I guess this right. This is a game you guys play. You set up all your mushrooms, and then you have a stirring contest to see who can resist the urge to look at all those amazing mushrooms.
Yeah, we
It's
needed
hard.
some
We
help
don't have
with
a
this
lot of
picture.
pictures of us together, surprisingly. You'd think we worked the tripod way more often than we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, self timer is
Yeah.
difficult
There
sometimes,
you
but
go.
Halloween's approaching, so we got our carved jack-o'-lantern mushrooms and our carved
Love it.
jack-o'-lantern.
so this was, in case you guys don't know, the jack-o'-lantern is a wild mushroom that grows in clusters that is um well, it's poisonous, and it's
Yeah.
it's known as a lookalike for chanterelles. It sort of looks like the chicken of the woods
The laughing
if you
Jims.
it sort of looks like chicken of the woods if you really have no idea what you're doing. And it looks, yeah, Emily mentioned laughing Jims. Now in that bottom picture there, that's on the left side, that's laughing Jims.
Yep.
And then on the right side is the jack-o'-lanterns. And then in the middle we've got a jack-o'-lantern on which we carved jack-o'-lanterns. So it's
I
a
like
sort of
it.
meta jack-o'-lantern thing going
Yes,
on.
that's the most meta mushroom picture I have seen in a while, right there.
If only we could capture their bioluminescence in the photo
Yeah.
next to the glowing jack-o'-lantern. It's a
That's
difficult
true.
technique.
It's
Man,
really nice.
so check this out. So I got to talk to Alan Rockefeller about photographing the bioluminescent quality of them, and he said that one of the times he did it, he just set his camera up on a tripod all night, open exposure for like 8 hours
Wow.
Oh, wow.
for the entire night, or I mean hours and hours. I can't remember exactly how long he said, but where I was just like, what, really? He said, yeah, it's like very dull bioluminescence. So you got to really leave the exposure open a long time. So anyway, I have one spot in my yard where every freaking year I get this perfect little flush of jacks. And I was like, great, I'm going to do this year. I'm going to do the photo just like Alan said. And of course, this year it was dry and it didn't pop. So
Oh,
man, you
maybe
guys
next time.
oh,
We recently
yeah.
went camping and we got to watch them glowing right on the log. It was
Oh,
stupendous.
Yeah,
nice.
so you're lucky to have the opportunity to see them in your yard like that,
Yeah.
because the only times we've ever had the opportunity to see them glowing is by collecting it and bringing it home to a dark
Uh,
room. So yeah, this last time camping, Emily mentioned, we did have them right in the campsite, and we got to see them glow. But we didn't have the camera technique down, and I still don't. Although I'll have to think about what you just said. I don't know if my camera will allow that type of long exposure, but
yeah,
um,
you gotta look up. I know he's got a super pro camera, so you can pretty much make it do whatever you want. But yeah,
sure.
I don't even know how long mine will let the shutter stay open. I don't know.
So we got a funny story for you for this next few slides. So we get a lot of random jobs doing what we do. We've even done a sermon about mushrooms for the Unitarian church in our
Okay.
town,
Yeah.
and about nature and mushrooms. We get a lot of weird calls. So somebody called and said, "Can you guys get us witch's butter mushrooms, Tremella mesenterica?" And we're like,
yellow
they didn't
witches.
say the Latin name, but they said yellow witch's butter. So they said, what is this? Yeah, but why? I mean, nobody ever wants that. Are you going to eat it, or really just be curious about this? Is this by any chance Disney? Because they were filming Hocus Pocus 2 in our home state of Rhode Island that summer, or autumn rather. It was in the autumn, and so we went and gathered a lot of witch's butter for Disney to put in their movie. But we knew the natural witch's butter wouldn't be really photogenic and show up on a camera, even though we collected some logs from the
Right.
woods and brought them
Yeah,
to the set
just
for
too
the prop
small,
people.
too small to be very impressive. So,
Mhm.
despite the serious effort to bring them some, because who it was the props master from their production company, and
Oh,
so we're like, okay, we got to bring them something cool, right? So eventually, so this came. I had the idea, but it came from Emily's experimentation. So what you're looking at there is something called what is that? Foliacea? What is that?
Oh, fusiformis.
Tremella fusiformis. That's a jelly fungus from the jelly fungi family, and it's related to the wood ear mushroom and
mhm.
some other mushrooms that are found in Asian soups, and it's related to the witch's butter, which was another jelly fungus. And so, sometime back in the day, Emily had created some dishes by, instead of soaking wood ear mushrooms in water and boiling them in water, she would soak them in different um, juices of different flavors and boiling them in the juice too. So that gave them a nice flavor. And we said, geez, what if we soak, instead of rehydrating these things? Oh, sorry, I missed something there. So we decided that we could start with a dehydrated jelly fungus, and we could buy what the Chinese called white fungus, which is this Tremella fusiformis here. And
And
if
we
we
just
just
soaked it in yellow
soak it,
food color.
yeah, instead of soaking it in water, if we soak that species, which is larger, in yellow food coloring.
So we experimented with that, and we got a little orange food coloring. Go to the next slide, and then you'll see that we came out with these like really interesting looking things
They're pretty
that we
large.
delivered to the props department.
Those are full size dinner plates there. So these are big jelly fungi, and they were perhaps a little too big, but in the end, we ended up, we didn't know,
And there they are.
are they going to use these things or what? So we brought them back to the props department and all, and they were like, oh, we could tell they liked them a little better. They were just bigger and more visible, and so we had to wait a long time until, of course, and of
The
course,
movie came
Hocus
out.
Pocus 2 is a kids movie, but of course, we're going to go and see it to see our mushrooms in there. And it was pretty cool. The movie was entertaining enough. And
And at the
also,
very end of the movie, they had to do a banishing spell and gather witch's butter. So there's the list of ingredients. They tick off witch's butter. And then you'll see the zombie guy harvesting the witch's butter off of a log. And in the final scene when they're banishing the witches, there's Bette Midler our witch's butter. I mean, well, fusiformis, but who knows? It's Disney. Disney magic.
Yeah, it was our
Nice.
sort of semi-artificial witch's butter, but it was a real mushroom, and I got to admit, it was pretty cool to see it on screen with those
All
stars.
right, I'm gonna go watch Hocus Pocus 2 now, and I gotta see this. I gotta
We
see
didn't get
this.
credit in the film
Not
trailer.
not
Maybe we
witch's
saw
butter.
people.
Oh, dude, I know all about that. I worked in Hollywood, and I did a couple movies where I did so much work prior to setting the movie up, and never
Not on
got
the
any credit. Yeah,
That's
I
too
know.
bad.
Oh,
I know all about that. There's a lot going on. I mean, to make a movie, it's a lot of people.
Yep,
And,
yep.
they do their best to try to credit everybody, but if you're not in the actual production staff, you often don't don't get the credit you need. Yeah. All
let's
right,
get
what do we
back
got
to
here? Look at all
the
these
mushroom hunting.
mushrooms. Gosh dang.
Yeah, honeys or
Yep.
brown oaks or yellow oaks are malaria species. Those are pretty abundant in October. You start seeing them September, October. It's like a herald of fall.
No,
They're
let's.
really expert mushroom like
Yeah,
level because like
I
they
was.
have gills and they can look like deadly gallerinas. And
Yeah, I was just about to sort of butt in there and say, let's not encourage people to eat stuff that sort of in general looks like this because,
Sure.
it's a mushroom where you'd have to look at them individually very carefully. But yeah, we do want to show you some of these cool finds. Just, I'll just say it now, and I won't keep saying it, but just don't try this at home unless you maybe talk to us first, or unless you really know what you're doing. You want to explain what you're doing here, Emmy?
oh, just
Dude,
reveling in
so
spring.
before we go into this awesome photo here, I'm gonna just say this. Have you seen where I guess people are writing AI books about mushroom IDing, and they're getting a bunch of stuff wrong, and everybody's worried and all that. And I just say Darwinism. I just say, if you are so dumb that you want to buy, instead of buying a book written by like Bill Russell, who actually knows what he's doing, or uh, maybe you're in Appalachia and you want to go learn about plants and mushrooms on the Appalachian Trail. Instead of buying a book written by a person, you're going to actually buy a book written by AI. I don't even feel bad for you, dude. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't. So I work in an ER. I don't know if you know this, but I'm an emergency room nurse, and I would say the most common mushroom ingestion problem we deal with is jack-o'-lanterns. Everybody thinks
Wow,
it's a chanterelle. 100%. That's almost exclusively what we get, and
interesting.
uh, and I just don't feel bad for these people because you get their story and there's like, well, it was an orange mushroom.
Oh,
And I'm like,
geez.
so that's your identification criteria, an orange mushroom? If you can't verbalize, traits and things you're looking for, then you should not be ingesting that mushroom. And I mean, dear God, there are Facebook groups. At a minimum, take 4 pictures of the mushroom, put it on an ID group. I mean, these people, they don't even do that. It's always the people who just go, oh, I wonder if those are those chanterelles people say are so tasty. They pick them
Ooh,
and they eat them. I'm like,
analyze.
you guys are making just quick decisions in life, aren't you? Yeah,
Right.
but that's part of then also how they get stigmatized is,
Yeah.
instead of going, well, that was a dumb person making a dumb decision, and I potentially can make a better decision. People just go, mushrooms equal, don't touch. Mushrooms
Right.
are all gonna kill me. All right, so what do we got here? Look at these. Now
Inky
this is up in Rhode
capsules,
Island.
maybe? Huh?
This is up in Rhode Island.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, cool.
These are so good. You ever have an inky caps or shaggy manes?
I
Lawyer's
have
mane?
never eaten them. I never get enough of them. Yeah, we get a lot of
They're the
scaly ink
best.
caps here, and I've never gotten a good enough flush where I said I'm gonna try to eat them.
They
But I
do
hear they're
give
good.
they turn into an inky mass when they're
Yeah,
exposed to the spores develop. So you got to get them quick, and they'll
yeah,
quest in your fridge if you forget about them too.
yeah.
But I've seen people who've made like squid ink pasta, tinting
Mm.
pasta with the spore
Ah,
mass. I've seen people use the ink as for portraits, just drawing with
yeah,
the shaggy mane ink.
But
But
really, the
I
best
enjoy
part is when you find them before they turn to ink.
yeah.
And
in my top 5.
now, what did you say,
Oh,
Geeky?
really? They're your top 5? Oh, crap. Yeah.
They
All
really are
right.
something.
I
Did you
gotta
say you
try
find
them.
Scaly inky cap, did you
Yeah,
mention back there?
yeah.
Oh, that okay, so I really love that one.
Okay.
We've only found it a few times. We found it in Amsterdam, New York one time. That's a town in New York, Amsterdam. There was this beautiful cemetery and sort of a path near the back, and there was this big old stump, and I found a ton of those scaly inky caps. And
Mm,
I have to admit, I mean, I knew what they were. That was the first time we'd ever found them, and I think we've only found them once or twice in Rhode Island ever. But despite knowing what they were, just the fact of those little scales looking like an amanita, vaguely, was one of the more terrifying mushrooms I've ever cooked and eaten. But
it's a cool mushroom. Yeah, it looks pretty rad. Yeah,
oh, anyway, and the shaggy manes are just like a larger
yeah.
version of it. But I
They're a
would.
relative of the alcohol inky cap. I'm not sure if you're
Mhm.
familiar with that, but if
Uh-uh.
you combine alcohol with the alcohol ink cap, they also
Oh,
call
yeah,
it
yeah.
pain because it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an antabuse
Madness.
effect. Makes you
Yes.
really sick. Even if you eat the
Yep,
wine or beer a couple of days after you eat the mushrooms, you can still get sick.
yep.
But that chemical is not in shaggy manes. A lot of people think that it might be, but it's not. You can.
Yeah, you can have shaggy manes with a glass of wine or whatever.
Nice.
But
Yeah,
I forget
well,
what's next. Let's see what's
there
next.
there's a guy on Facebook who actually sells the culture of this, and he grows them in bags.
Another great table spread for the late fall. A little bit of beefsteak polypore there,
Um,
but there's a couple parasol caps on there too. They resemble amanitas. That's one of Ryan's favorites. Parasols, macrolepiodas, or it used to be lepiota genus. Those are
Yeah, I talked to a lot of I have not eaten it yet, but I've talked to because I usually only find one, and then I don't know, I'm lazy. Maybe I'm on a hunt where I'm not foraging, to eat, and so I only have specimen boxes, and I've never had them, but I know several people that say it's probably their favorite.
oh, is
mm,
that right? Yeah, it's really something special. Now, that's a thing I wanted to address from before, because when you said that, a lot of the beginner safe mushrooms are the absolute most delicious, and yeah, I do agree with that. We're very lucky in this region that we have things that beginners can safely identify and enjoy that are among the most delicious flavors on earth. But if you get really good at mushroom hunting and you get into, there are more,
True.
I don't want to say that they're better, but there are other flavors that are very different.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's one of the things we try to teach the most about is just the diversity of the flavors. And that thing of Americans tending to think all mushrooms taste like quote unquote mushrooms because they think they all taste the
Right.
same. There are so many flavors. Mushrooms can be savory, but in a different way from the portobello, like less of the kind of familiar mushroomy flavor and more meaty or more
Mhm.
earthy or nutty. But then
sometimes sour or tangy or sweet.
right,
Mushrooms sometimes
mushrooms
Yeah.
that are not even savory at all, just completely different
like
flavor.
lion's mane. A lot of people throw it in crab cakes or something. I think that's like a disservice to the mushroom because you're throwing Old Bay spices at it, all these other strong flavors.
Right.
And you're getting a light texture of crab meat, but what about this subtle sweetness of the mushroom itself? Are you completely missing out on because you're
Yep.
adulterating it essentially? I mean,
Right.
And that's a good one to mention. Um, I had eaten quite a bit of I lived down the road from a commercial mushroom farmer, and he gives me a lot of free lion's mane. My daughter loves lion's mane. The
Mm.
first time we ever found a decent sized head where we harvested it and ate it from the wild, we were like, "Oh my god, this is another mushroom." The wild found lion's mane tastes a heck of a lot better. No
Wow.
it's
offense to the
so delicate.
cultivated, but
Mm.
yeah,
Cool.
it's even more rich, even more tasty. Yeah, yep. It's
Good
really
to
true.
know.
You gotta everything that you eat cultivated, you should definitely try from the wild because you might be surprised how different that flavor is or more complex the flavor is.
And there's a gorgeous one. Brian also
Um,
put one of these pictures of his hericiums on the picture, one of his older publications, Gourmet Mushrooms of Rhode Island. It's one of the first ones that
yeah,
he did.
so gorgeous.
I wish that one came back, actually. It's been so many years, it doesn't come back anymore.
Yeah, we
Mm,
got lion's mane off that stump for a good, 8 years, but the stump is just rubble now.
yeah. It did its job.
It
It
did its
can
job.
yeah,
That's
well,
right.
maybe that was a slacker. 8 years, that's a long time. Come on, lion's mane. Come on, bear's tooth. Come on, coral fungus. Get your act together. Or don't. Take your time because we like eating you.
Oh, they're so cute. People say they look like tribbles from
Yep,
Star Trek.
they do.
Oh, the king is another late season. We sometimes
Yep.
find that in November more often than we find it in the spring or throughout the summertime. That was a nice collection that we
They,
found.
they don't taste bad, do they?
We get
No.
all around New England through our foundation. We do classes all throughout. But one thing I really love that's on that table is the jelly tooth, the cat's tongue
Mm,
fungus. It's really
okay.
Pseudomonas gelatinosum is kind of uncommon. We find it. I love candying it because it's like a
Yep.
little jelly candy. I don't know. They're just wonderful.
This is a late fall table, and a lot of people don't know there is a late fall season. In Rhode Island, we do meet a lot of people that sort of learned a bit of mushroom hunting as part of their heritage. A lot of Polish, a lot of Italians uh, in Rhode Island tend to know a little bit about mushroom hunting, but they all seem to believe that it ends when the hen of the woods is gone.
Mm,
But for us, that's the beginning of a whole new season. And yeah, the later season is more difficult mushrooms, more expert level mushrooms, different kinds of agaricus, different kinds of tricholomas, bluets, shaggy manes, alcohol inkies, and
Oyster mushrooms. Of course.
actually, yeah, oysters, brick tops. Down there along the bottom of the table, all the mushrooms in front there, sort of to the right of the hand there, that's all that alcohol inky. That's a
mm,
delicious mushroom. You just have to remember not to have a beer that night or the
right.
next couple of nights.
Yeah.
Another great collection table from late season.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, these are really beautiful and photogenic. They're sand Lucaria mushrooms. They grow on the coast here in Rhode Island. On
What are they called?
sand Lucarias.
Oh, sand Lacaria. Okay.
That's right.
All
Yeah,
right.
it's Lucaria trollisata,
No
and
way.
it
They have purple gills. They're
grows in the
so
sand
beautiful.
on the beach. We've got some other pictures of them with sort of a beach sunset in the background. It's pretty neat, and they're a gilled mushroom, so it's not really for beginners, but
They have a deep flavor though.
yeah, very unique flavor. I mean, all the Lacarias have a certain flavor. I mean, certain smell to them that they sort of have in common. But these ones down by the beach have this sort of extra saltiness to them, extra salty kind of smell. They smell a little bit like the sea, and you got to brush them very carefully because just one grain of sand can really ruin a good bite of
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
But they're worth it.
My secret for sand Lucarias is to put them in a nice chowder or a cream of mushroom soup and then let it settle in the fridge and don't drink that last like inch of soup
Uh,
because there's gonna be
right.
like one grain of sand in there
Right.
inevitably. That'll ruin someone's meal. But
So now,
it's so good. It's worth the
are
effort to clean
do
them.
these are they grown like right out of the sand, or is it always in
Yeah.
like moss or lichen or?
I think we
uh,
got another
There's no
picture
the
of
next
her
picture
of
shows them
her.
in the sand
Oh, there
actually.
we go.
There they are. Yep. Now that's actually the same
Right on the dunes.
species, just a little older, and the
Oh,
caps
no
opened up.
way. All right. So yeah, when they're young, they really have such a interesting coloration.
They're much more purple when they're young, yes.
No way.
And
Yeah,
and
I have never seen. I grew up on Lake Michigan, and I don't know if they're over there. I have to look up
might
on
only be near Ocean Coast. I'm not
They
sure.
well,
Ocean Coast. Okay.
it's the pitch pine. I think the key factor is the pitch pine trees and
Okay.
or jack pine. So
Okay.
so if you've got an area along the lake shore there with that type of tree, you could very well find these guys.
Yeah, those are super cool.
This was the first time I found the yellow oyster variety growing wild, which concerned me a little bit because it's an escapee from cultivation. It wouldn't naturally occur in our area. So
Hmm.
when I found it, I was just kind of studying it, and we had the opportunity to find it right side by side with some oyster mushrooms. So I got to cook them up and taste them side by side. But I just wanted to urge cultivators out there who are working with oyster strains to try to just don't compost them outside because they can outcompete native oyster strains.
Uh,
We're starting to see them more and more in forests, and they can really just go through substrate perniciously, and like faster, I think, than other native oyster strains. So they can outcompete genetic diversity in the wild. And it's a little bit of a concern to me to see these in Massachusetts where we're hunting. We haven't found them in Rhode Island yet, but it's only a matter of time. In the next 5
It
years,
is only a matter of time. They're freaking everywhere up here. They
yes.
dominate the landscape. Oh
Is
yeah,
that
it's
right?
it's
And
out
they
of
were all
control.
from the farms, huh?
I guess. I mean, I don't know the details. I just know they're extremely invasive. They can just completely dominate a log.
We heard that there was I don't know what state. I want to say Minnesota, but I'm sort of guessing there. But we heard about a mushroom farm that burned down, and then sort of in the path of the plume of smoke, in the following years, there were plenty of golden oysters found growing in the wild. Um,
Doesn't surprise me in the
it's
least.
interesting. Yeah. So, I like what Emily said, try to
But there's some
contain it.
native oysters, and they
Yeah.
just
Oh, you're 100% right. The just
Mhm.
like chucking your spent blocks in the backyard. I mean, it's one thing if you're growing cubensis and you go back to your toss pile and you're like, oh look, I got a couple extra cubes, awesome. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're also pretty relegated. They're not going to just keep spreading, whereas
Right.
the
Yeah.
yellow oyster will really just go to town.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying there, Geeky. You don't need to. I mean, in general, we say to people, and Emily too says, we always say, when in doubt, throw it out, right? When you're identifying mushrooms, but we like to say, when in doubt, throw it outside, because you don't need to throw it in the trash. You can put your mushrooms out there so animals can continue to, insects and animals can eat them, and the spores can keep being released into the wind. But yeah, when it's something. That could
non-native.
potentially be invasive or non-native. Yeah. And I agree with what you said, Geeky, that the psilocybe, if you're growing that, there's no need to man, let those spores out. Let them fly
Let 'em
around the
fly,
world.
let 'em free.
At least here, and I mean, anywhere that there's natural growing conditions for them, they pretty much are already there anyway. So you're not, if you live in Louisiana and you're tossing your spent blocks in the backyard, well, I mean, they might already be grown in the backyard anyway. So it
Yeah.
does not seem to be a hyper invasive species. Now, on the flip side, here in Ohio, we're pretty known for having Avoidiosa cystidiata, which can, when brought, like it got brought over to the Pacific Northwest and it's just grown like wildfire over there. So you got some of these, you got to be careful. Just that idea of actually asking yourself, what am I going to do with these blocks? Maybe these yellow oyster blocks, we got to do something else with them. Although at this point, I really don't even know if it matters. I think they're,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you could
it's
be right.
unleashed, it's
I think it
unleashed
is
already.
literally unleashed. Yeah.
But here they are side by side with the summer oyster variety that I'd found, the
Yeah.
Throatus pulmonarius, I think that was, or
Yeah.
maybe pupilinus. It was so delicious, though. In the next one, you can see I was cooking them up side by side, did the proper taste test.
Nice. Yeah. We get quite a few of them summer whites and, they taste good. I actually took a culture and started cultivating it for a while, and I would get these almost 2 pound heads.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so they lend
That's
themselves to cultivation really well too.
Indeed.
And this is just one massive chaga.
Look at that! Oh my God, that's so big.
Weighed about 15 pounds. Here's some bleeding mycena, the bleeding bonnet. I love
Yeah.
these. This is an edible species that's we've tried. Um,
What do you think?
Obscure edible. It tastes very unique.
It's
It
quite
tastes
good.
very good. It's almost
Mhm.
like blue cheese if you cook it right without burning it,
Ah,
because they're so fine. The caps are so fine.
yeah.
You have to cook them without burning them, but once you do, they have this unique flavor like nothing else.
I have to agree, and we find them once in a while, and they're usually so small or so few of them that it's truly like a why bother. But
Yeah.
this couple of times we found them, and there were enough of them to be worth collecting, and they were of a decent enough size, or at least some of them were of decent size. And sure enough, I agree with Emily. They were quite delicious. But yeah, on the other hand, that would be something we would consider expert level. It's very small and very easily confused with something else.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I never even thought about eating them. Maybe I'll give them a try, but usually it's like the tiniest little cluster, and most of them look like crap by the time you see them. And yeah,
They're so
Right.
dear to
these
my
are,
heart, though. I just love the way they look and everything. I had to get closer to them by eating them.
yeah, yeah, I'm with you.
Oh, yeah, and cooking wild mushrooms, that's one of my favorite things, obviously, to do with them. There's some lamb chops with black trumpets and some other secret edible wild plants I put in there. Working on a cookbook right now. Some pressed alcohol ink cap sandwiches with salami, i.e., David Aurora's recommendation in Mushrooms Demystified. He
That
recommended
looks
making
good.
inky cap salami sandwiches, and they did not disappoint.
Ooh, I'm gonna have to. I gotta find me some of these and give that a try. That looks good.
Oh
All right,
yeah.
let me see. I think we got what do we got? Two more here. All right, here we go. On the food. All right, this is perfect because it's about lunchtime for me. So
All right. Yeah, this is like Sinums with the cream sauce and unique pasta dish with a little bit of sage.
Yeah.
Really good. And if you can find, as I was mentioning, large forest mushroom caps or meadow mushrooms or any large mushroom cap, you can score it on the outside to sear it and cook it first. Get a good crisp on both sides of the mushroom slice, then top it with whatever toppings you enjoy. I think this was
nice.
prosciutto and sage, or maybe some smoked Gouda or something.
Oh, that looks
And
so good.
you can slice it up just like a pizza after
Now,
baking it again.
now we've heard that up in Maine, they get the species, the giant horse mushroom, Agaricus ossicanus, which is something we hope to find ourselves someday. But this regular horse mushroom was big enough to do a little
Feel a cutting board.
pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how. I think the biggest one I ever got was about that big. How big are these other ones you're talking about? They get even
We've
bigger.
That's a cutting board.
These are pretty.
It's a
I don't
large
know. I
cutting
mean, what
board.
we've read about the giant horse mushroom is that finding one that's 12 inches across is not entirely unusual.
Wow, very cool.
What else we got? Oh yeah, this is something that a lot of cultivators can enjoy. This is the king trumpet oyster, Photosphorungii, I think is how you say it. And I just kind of sliced the base of it into noodles and boiled them for a long time, and
So,
then sauced them up with something.
so
And
let's just to
it's
make
not
it.
noodles; it's just mushroom.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Just
Yeah.
to make it clear, this is not noodles with mushroom. Those are noodles made out of mushroom.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, a ravioli. You can't have that mushrooms without pasta, right? So I like making pasta at home. This was hen of the wood that I stuffed it with, and in the next one you can see the completed dish. I used pumpkin and
Oh
pecan and hen of the woods and sage.
Unreal.
Yeah,
man, that
you have to
looks
toast the
good.
pecans though, because if you don't toast pecans, they have different flavor.
Mhm.
Here, you can use mushrooms for meat substitution too. This was the pheasant polypore. I just spiced it like a gyro, so you could have like big slabs of meat in there that aren't meat. They're
Now,
not
do you ever marinate it? Because I've tried pheasants a couple times and I'm not. I've never figured out how to make it well. So I'm looking for some
really.
secrets.
We
Well,
just like searing them. Lately, we've been cutting them into cubes to boil them because we enjoy their texture.
Okay.
But like
uh,
that's the one way that we were processing it easier when we find it because we find that we like the springy little cubes that they have.
Mhm.
But ordinarily, the way we cook mushrooms is always the same. What we tell our students is to cook them for 7 minutes on medium heat with an even slice, flipping halfway through the cooking time, doting on each little mushroom slice like it's an individual steak because you want to get a good golden brown sear on both sides of the mushroom
Okay.
slice. But cooking it down for that amount of time allows it to get fully cooked, but a little bit crisp around the edges without burning. So nobody wants a soggy, slippery mushroom on their fork, especially little kids are really not into the texture of mushrooms.
Right.
They can get around that if you cook them the right way by giving them a good saute and essentially searing them.
and to go back to the Brandt knife test, that's a technique we use on this pheasant polypore as well,
Right.
to find the most tender parts.
Oh
Right.
yeah, and the candied wood ears. Ryan was kind of explaining that I like to candy mushrooms, but we don't find wood ears all that much locally. We've only found them in Connecticut, but never Rhode Island, strangely.
Hmm.
But we like to forage at Asian grocery stores when we're not finding mushrooms in the wild, which really never happens. But when we're empty-handed, we always get wood ears from Asian markets, and then I boil them in
Awesome.
syrup, like with orange juice or cherry juice with almond extract, or orange juice with vanilla extract to make a creamsicle kind of flavor on your wood ear. They're good on
Yum.
salads too. Oh yeah, and don't forget your candy cap cookies.
Now, candy caps, that's another thing we don't find in the wild, not here on the East Coast, but um, you can get a hold of them from the West Coast, imported. And the candy cap is actually a lactarius, a milk mushroom species, um, and it smells and tastes just like maple syrup. And I had read that, oh, the flavor is too strong. You don't want to eat them whole. you just want to use their flavor in a recipe. Well, I got them and I rehydrated them and cooked them in butter and ate them with a fork. And I said, whoever said not to do this is insane. This is delicious. Just I mean, the cookies were great, but I could have maybe eaten just a pile of the mushrooms too. I mean, it's really something.
Well, I can say as somebody who has tried to be vegan on a couple occasions, butter is what gets me every time. Butter. I mean, butter makes it all better. Yes.
A lot of people say every mushroom's best friend is butter and salt,
Oh,
but
yeah. Yeah.
sometimes I think some mushrooms are more suited to oil than butter. It depends on the mushroom.
Okay.
But here's some great lobster mushrooms, and those need a lot of butter.
Yeah, that's
They can
made
be
to
a little
dipped in
dry.
butter.
We found these when we were camping in Maine, so of course I had to make lobster rolls out of them. Vegan lobster, well, not vegan because of butter, of course, right? The butter gets you.
That's what I'm
But
saying.
that's a really interesting mushroom where the mold overtakes it. The
Mhm.
Hypomyces lactiflorum
Yep.
overtakes different sorts of mushrooms and makes them edible. And oh, they're so good. In the next picture, I think you can see the process of chopping them up and sauteing the meat at our campsite. Um, and there's the finished product.
So perhaps not
Mm-mm-mm.
a vegan lobster roll, but a vegetarian lobster roll.
There
Right?
you go. There you
I
go.
used a little wood sorrel to decorate them too, a little wild wood sorrel as a tangy garnish.
Nice.
And of course, I made poached lobster stew, lobster bisque rather,
With lobster mushrooms.
and a real lobster tail, of course.
I love it. Just it's like if it was Iron Chef and it was like, what can you do with lobster?
I
Oh,
love
the
getting
lobster
creative in
mush.
the kitchen.
Like
We sell gift certificates too. We have all kinds of experiences that we offer, from guided walks to presentations in your home, cooking demonstrations and tasting events. We call it a mushroom festival, and we combine all those things into one day, which is like a 4 or 5 hour program.
Yeah, it's a
yep.
4-hour program, and that's our deluxe class, is what we call a mushroom festival, where you invite your own little group of friends or family, and sometimes have them split the cost. Although sometimes people just do it as a gift or
Right.
whatever. But a lot of people kind of throw in and split the cost of it, and it's start with a living room slideshow in your own place, and we use the slideshow that's appropriate to whatever the season is, and then we go out mushroom hunting, and then the finale is we come back and do a deluxe cooking demo with, well, we bring a little cooler with us, so you get to definitely try several gourmet mushroom species in addition to whatever we found and collected on the guided walk
Love
that
it.
day. It's pretty fantastic. It's a almost more of a party than a class, but it really is a class. It's just so much
Especially when
fun.
people break out the wine in the middle of the day.
There you go.
We've gotten some
Yep.
unruly groups at times, a little difficult to stay
Yeah.
focused, but it is a lot of fun. It's a great
Yeah.
immersive experience to learn firsthand.
I can tell you this for sure. There are people who it's the only way they're gonna ever kind of cross that chasm between I'm afraid of mushrooms to, oh, I could go out and maybe start eating some of the mushrooms that I find, is by finding people like you guys who can educate and teach and show you how to look for them, how to ID them, all that good stuff, and then how to cook them. I 100% it's the way to go. So if you guys are anywhere near Rhode Island, or are
New
traveling to
England?
Rhode Island, yeah, anywhere in New England,
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll
check these
travel
guys
pretty
out.
far. We'll travel far to reach you for a private class, but I
There you go.
agree. Yeah, if you're in Southern New England, keep an eye out because we do a lot of programs.
Love it.
We also sell foraging knives that we had made with
Ooh,
the Mushroom Hunting Foundation engraved. It's a great little tool for anybody who's seasoned mushroom hunter.
Yeah, you don't want to wash your mushrooms, and this is,
No.
something we've had to really sort of try to impress upon people that have their own traditional way of doing it. A lot of times, it's like, okay, this particular species, you don't need to boil it and throw out the water 6 times. You can just saute it, and that means you want to not flush the water out of it with, well, not flush the flavor out of it with
right.
running water,
Yeah.
and not make it soggy before you cook it. What you want to do is brush it clean with a dry brush, and then slice it and saute it. It's the cooking process that sterilizes it, not the washing.
Right. I like it.
Yeah, washing just compromises flavors and textures. If you're out there all day hunting, you don't want to destroy your mushrooms. They're like 90% water anyway, and the whole point of the cooking process is to dry that moisture out. The more
Yep.
water you're adding to the equation, the less flavor you're ultimately getting.
Gotcha.
And then there's In the Weeds with Emily Schmidt. This is my
Love
YouTube
it.
channel where I
Okay.
teach people about edible wild plant foraging. You can find me on YouTube. There's a few episodes still up there now. I think the one on magnolia flowers and ramps, the ramps episode is still up there. And the first episode about how to get into foraging and how certain guidelines and rules that you need to observe to do it safely.
Hold on. Can you back? Oh, okay. I guess I
Sure.
could talk over these different ones. I just wanted to throw in there that, like, as a guy, at first, it took me a while to get into the wild plants because I kind of felt like, well, it's just like leaves and flowers, and I don't know. It was like I'm not a big salad eater, although I do try to eat salad to for health reasons. But, like, I just wasn't that into it at first. But over time, Emily has shown me all these plants that it's like, man, if you walk by that and don't collect it, you're an idiot. I mean,
Yeah.
wow, they're so good. And yes, there are safety rules. There's a whole sort of different set of safety
It's
rules.
actually much more complicated. Some people think we just have a better
Yep.
relationship with plants as a society, but they are capable of some pretty potent poisons too. And honestly, not to be, you know, I really thought it'd be easier to get into plant foraging, but it turns out it's much more complicated. There can be edible parts on a plant with the poisonous parts on the same plant, different male and female plant forms.
Yep.
It just gets more confusing. Whether or not it needs to be prepared or eaten raw is a big part of it. Whether it needs special preparation is part of it too. But a lot of things that we walk around are so difficult to walk by for me now because
Yep.
there's edible stuff everywhere. Yeah, and forsythia flowers, you can eat those too. Most flowers don't have a lot of good
Wait, you can eat forsythias? I got a bunch of these. I didn't know that.
as long as they're not chemically treated, yeah. You can nibble
Cool.
on a flower. They're pretty bitter though.
Okay.
Um, but that's just one thing that's really common ornamental. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize you can eat. And then magnolia flowers are a flower that is worth eating because they have a ton of flavor. They taste
Hmm.
like clove or cardamom almost. So in the episode
Uh,
that's on YouTube right now, I teach you how to make magnolia shortbread out of the flower petals.
oh,
I
no
I
way.
developed my own recipe with those magnolia flowers. It's in combination. Well, all right, I'm not going to say it because we've got a
Secret cookbook in the works.
secret recipe going on there.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. No, no, no. Don't let the cat out of the bag just yet. Yes.
But ramps, I'm sure it's from being from Michigan, you used to harvest ramps,
Well, he's
huh?
from
Wild
Ohio.
leeks.
He's from Ohio.
Everywhere. Yeah. Yeah. Both states. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. They're
they're
great.
delectable too. And there's an episode on it's harvesting them sustainably and ethically.
Right, and we have to watch out. I mean, the internet is a vast place, and you say something about something you do in your region, and people flip out because in their region it's endangered or some or threatened.
Right.
But
Yep.
Yeah, in Rhode
I
Island, ramps are actually a species of special concern here. They're threatened in some in a variety of
Oh,
ways, threatened and endangered in New York and I think parts of New Jersey too. There's a variant of the Berdicii ramp, the white ramps, that is less common. But if you can find an established patch, there's no harm in collecting a few leaves here and there, or even digging a few bulbs from the outside or even the inside of a colony to thin it out and help the other bulbs get bigger and help the plants flourish better.
Yeah, it's funny to see
Just
people.
replant the root portions.
It's funny to see people wigging out about ramps, and it's like, man, if you've ever gone in a forest and seen ramps going to infinity, then you'd understand how the idea that if I take 8 of these, it's going to destroy them all is ludicrous.
yeah.
Um, but on the other hand, in certain regions, you're not supposed to collect them because they're threatened. They're rare or endangered, and you
Right.
better leave them alone. So we always tell people you got to learn the rules of your own state.
Yeah.
You know,
Now, to piggyback off of that, so many of the times it is not the case that they're endangered because of over harvesting of them. It's other factors at play that are causing those decreases in population size. So you also got to just know, like, well, what is causing this? And so if a state park has a region they're trying to hold on to, a ramp population that's in jeopardy, of course, don't pick there.
Right.
But I think this applies to like mushrooms in general too, where people think, oh, the cut versus pluck, and can you over harvest and this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, can you kill a tree by picking apples off it?
right?
Exactly.
You
I've actually
can't.
read some studies.
But the only thing I guess that's a little bit different about that, I'll just say this, is if you're harvesting mature guild mushrooms where they've dropped and released quite a few spores, you're good. Don't pick the little babies that haven't released any spores or anything, of course, but
Right.
yeah, I think there's sometimes an over concern about that when I think in most cases you're not the one causing the decimation of that population. There's other
Right,
factors at
right,
play.
and
You gotta read up on it and find out what is actually at the root of these problems.
right, and sometimes it's not even so much a problem as it's just, something is, in the southern states, it can thrive in warmer winters, and in the north, not so much. And somewhere in between, there's an area where you'll find some of them hanging on. And
Right,
it's not necessarily anybody's fault that there aren't too many, but you still don't want to wipe them out.
right,
So it's
exactly.
like that type of thing sometimes. It's not always an environmental crisis. It's sometimes just the range of a certain thing.
Sure. Yep.
Um, so yeah, we like to reassure people about the pluck how they're plucking and cutting the mushrooms. We say you want to collect the mushroom completely. Don't worry about harming the mycelium that it's growing from, because that mycelium is hardy enough to survive the winter every year, for
Right.
example, among other things. So
It could actually more easily harm you if you don't collect the entire or like mushroom from the ground. If you break off or cut it off at ground level, you could be missing crucial pieces of information identifying that mushroom that were hidden
Right.
at the base of the stalk or somewhat
Yep.
subterranean.
yeah, the mycelium is pretty
Well,
strong.
I've actually read some
Yeah.
studies in chanterelles that actually, and plucking them actually promote more of them to grow, as opposed to cutting them at ground level.
I think every paper I've read that looked into this had that conclusion where they were like, if it was a choice between cutting or plucking, you should
Do you remember
probably
other
pluck.
species?
What will you cut 'em off?
Yeah.
Do you remember other species mentioned in what you've read?
Oh, I think I've read 2, maybe 3, but I cannot remember what it was now. No, I don't
I do
remember. I
remember
just people send me crap all the time, so I take a look at it real quick and go I usually jump to the conclusion and go, "Oh, yeah, okay, cool." So they found that, cutting I don't know where the cutting was a big deal. I guess maybe there's a lot of commercial I have seen a lot of photos out of China where they're commercially growing morels, and they do seem to cut them. I think that's because they've taken such great lengths to create this artificial growing environment that they
Mm.
feel
Sure.
like they're gonna ruin that or something. I don't know, but
Well,
yeah,
there's also the harvesting morels. If you cut it off at the base, you've eliminated a lot of the dirt right there.
yep, yeah, yeah,
That's what I
like
was thinking.
foliates too, yep.
Oh, and lilacs are another thing that you can enjoy infused or as a little nibble. They can be bitter outright if you're just eating them, but you can infuse them into drinks like
Mm,
lemonade or
Yeah,
just water.
she'll take one of those and just stick it in a carafe of water for the day, and then you get this ice water that's like, oh my god, it's like way more refreshing than just plain ice water. It's
nice.
as good as like a lemon ice water, but different.
In the episode Nothing Lacking About Lilacs, I teach you how to make a lilac flavored sugar so you can infuse the petals into the flavor of the
Mm,
sugar and
yum.
make baked goods with that or put it in tea. And pokeweed, another like good vegetable. Pokeweed shoots is another episode that's available for learning more about. Yep. Oh man, I just love foraging. Nothing in my life has brought me so much joy and adventure. When my friends shared their feral sour cherries, I was over the moon. And the ramp leaves in the next photo. I could eat ramps raw and nibble ramps raw because you've had breath, but I don't mind.
Nice.
Stinging nettle is another episode that I put up there. You can forage nettle with your bare hands if you can learn how to temper down the stinging hairs. You can
Mhm.
just fold them down and then you can manipulate the plant with your bare hands or just a foraging knife that you might have on you to collect.
Now why would you do that when you can just let it sting the crap out of you, though?
Because you can eat
I'm
them.
kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah. I think stinging nettle's the only plant I've ever had the urge to punch in the face. I just couldn't find its face. Drives me crazy, especially on a hot day.
Mulberries. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mulberries are fantastic. I wish I had more places for these. They keep getting cut down because they're like nuisance trees when they have such heavy fruit.
Yeah.
Ones in parking lots get nixed. I think in the next one, I made a cobbler. One time we were camping. I just kind of crumbling up some granola bars and cooking them down on the stove with the mulberries. Oh, that was so good. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's looking real good right there.
And of course, wild salad. So, you can supplement your mushroom foraging, go home empty handed, with anything green. So that's just a yard salad, something that I've collected from the backyard, different violets, dandelions. I see purslane in there, lamb's quarters, different stuff.
Love it. Every day, my kids, especially my 5-year-old, will come in with a plate looking just like that.
Cool.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. It's the way to live, really. Some nice tender purslane in there.
Oh yeah, that looks tasty.
And panzellas are a really nice alternative. If you're tired of just salads, you can add like a toasted bread of your choice and even some protein and nuts or something.
Love it.
And this is another secret recipe. It's some farro pears poached. Oh, I almost said the ingredient.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. Certain things I'm seeing here, I'm drooling and
Oh my gosh,
remembering.
I know. This
Uh,
looks so good.
I don't know if you wanted to talk about this, Ryan.
well, I'll mention it. I'm working on an online wild mushroom class. Basically, if you join the class, it's an online course that you can look at, but it's mainly based on kind of communicating with me personally about what you're finding, sending pictures and discussing the pictures and the identification
Nice.
process and cooking and all of that.
So kind of like an online mentorship almost, where you're
that's a
One-on-one.
good,
Yeah.
that's a good description of it. Yep,
Cool.
it's a class that's going on with multiple people, but it's a one-on-one class all the same.
Awesome.
And this was a page that Ryan put together he's working on his next new book. So this is something that he put together. Is just
Yeah, there's a big morel on the right side
Oh
there.
yeah. Stuffed morel. Yes.
Chef Morel. Now, to give credit where it's due, and it's given on that page as well. That's something we learned from Alex Babbage, who is a big morel hunter out in your neck of the woods, and he developed this method for stuffing them because you sort of have to you got to cook them thoroughly on all sides. So if you're gonna stuff the thing, it's got to be a phase where you actually stand them up in the pan, like you can see there, so that they'll cook on the bottom.
Right.
But yeah, that's quite a
We
fantastic.
came up with some really good combinations like pine nuts and Swiss cheese and apricots inside of a morel. Oh yeah.
Bloody.
That looks tasty.
So you can find out all about us on our website, mushroomhunting.org, or drop us a line at info@mushroomhunting.org if you have any questions or just like to say hello. We are on Instagram and Facebook. I have a Twitter account that I've been locked out of, but that's okay because I don't like Twitter. And what
Yeah.
else do we have? We have a
I-
TikTok.
Well,
In addition to my YouTube channel, In the Weeds, we have a TikTok, Mushroom Hunting Foundation.
um, but I mean, more than anything else, we like to teach our classes in person, and an awkward thing that I'm trying to get used to saying is that we are a nonprofit. So in case any of you happens to be loaded and wants to, give us a
Yes.
fat donation, we'll throw that out there. But aside from that, the way we make our money is by teaching our classes and various public and private instructional programs, and selling our books, which we've run out of at the current time. But that's
So we also have foraging knives
and
and
that's
In the
awesome.
Weeds flash drives. I've been selling the series on flash drives through our website.
and so aside from the occasional tool or whatever, everything we do is educational. And to go back to maybe one of your first questions, why did we form a nonprofit? It's basically because we realized we were a perfect fit for it. That everything we do is educational, teaching people how to safely enjoy America's wild mushrooms and foraging. And that's a great fit for a nonprofit. And we figured it would help us with taxes and help us with possibly getting donations from people. Yeah, it's quite an adventure. When we start our first couple years of mushroom hunting were so much fun, but we really had no idea how much better it was going to get once we got even further into it.
Well, so being an actual 501c3, if I donate money, I can take that as a deduction. So
That's right. That's
Absolutely.
a tax
that
deductible donation.
in our era of GoFundMe's and all that good stuff, the good old fashioned actual nonprofit organization is great because you get a little tax deduction that way. So yeah, anybody, for sure, anybody that's anywhere near you guys should be coming and checking you guys out. If you need a foraging knife, you saw the QR code there. We'll put the link in the description so you can get a foraging knife that looks like a pretty cool one. I might have to check it out. And then, yeah, some of the online mentorships. I know I've had to sort of step back and reevaluate it because I spend a lot of time doing it. But having the actual ability to interface with somebody who really knows what they're doing and can guide you through identifying features and all that, it's pretty valuable. So if you guys are looking for a mentor like that, but you don't happen to be anywhere near Rhode Island, it sounds like you can reach out to Ryan and set something up like that, and watch Emily's YouTube channel and check them out, guys. I'm gonna have all the links in the description so you can see what they're all about. And I've been definitely on a kick here lately to get my cube cultivating community out in the woods and
Come join us.
seeing what it's all about out there. It's a good time.
I
Definitely.
wanted to mention also that we're going to be at NEMP with a vending booth, the New England Mycological Federation's meeting in Cape Cod in October.
Cool.
And also don't forget about the Rhode Island Mushroom Festival, November 10th. Want to
Yes.
see y'all there.
We're
Come on
gonna
down.
have
Clean up.
all
Everybody
I'll have
come
all
join
those
us.
links we're gonna put in there for sure. So
Thank
everybody,
you, Mr. Mike.
anything that we talked about, you guys will be able to figure out how to get it in the description. So yep. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for doing this. This was really great. I'm glad we were able to take the time and get to know you guys.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, this is a blast.
Thanks very much.
Hope to see you down the trail.
All right, guys, that was Ryan and Emily Bouchard of the Mushroom Hunting Foundation. Had a great time talking with them. Learned a lot. Definitely cool to just pick people's brains and see what makes them tick. And I really, really think it is cool when you can find a mushroom couple. I think it's just cool, man. It's you work together, you accomplish some things, you can build something really special. It was really great seeing some of those pictures and be like, wow, they're really like they're their own little world up there. They're helping people understand that getting out in the woods, foraging for mushrooms, foraging for edible plants, this can augment your life. This can, bring gratification and joy to your life in a way that going to the freaking grocery store just never will do. So it was awesome getting to know those guys. If you guys are in the area, check out their website. If you want to donate, they got a 501c3. That is an actual tax deductible donation process. They're legit. I looked them up. So if you guys want to help out what they're up to, you can do that. And for sure, if you guys want to sign up for one of their events, just go to the website, see what they got going on soon. They got a few events coming up still in the fall here. And like they said, there's some late fall foraging that's pretty great. So we're also going to be covering that on the show. I'm not gonna lie, man, Northeast Ohio, it's been pretty bleak for me. I haven't found too many hens, even though this is when I should be finding all my hens. I should be making piles and piles of my taki jerky, and I just have not been able to. I don't know, maybe my buddy Don King's beating me to the punch getting out there at all those trees before I am. I don't know. I have to go talk to that guy, see what he's up to. So anyway, next week we're going to sit down with Josephine Nakakande. She's a Ugandan woman who founded an amazing nonprofit down there. She's been doing some really terrific things for the local economy and single women, widowed women down there. Hearing her story was really touching and moving, and I cannot wait to share it with you guys next week. Until then, go grow some mushrooms.